Chapter 576. Qingyuan Guild Hall, Qingyao Pavilion. Master, don't worry about refining pills. I, Black Bear, will make sure that the surroundings are quiet. I won't let you hear the slightest bit of movement. Hearing Yu Haoran's request, Black Bear hurriedly patted his chest and promised. Afterwards, the bear's murderous eyes stared at Gao Wanping and Meng Yun. Yu Haoran didn't deliberately lower his voice when he gave the order. This was clearly heard by Gao Wanping and the others outside the Qingyao Pavilion. Everyone who was poisoned looked at each other and realized that they had overestimated Gao Wanping's influence on Yu Haoran. The other party didn't care about him at all. Therefore, in order to avoid affecting Yu Haoran's pill refinement and causing him to be displeased and not refine any more antidotes for them, these people very tacitly retreated 31 meters. In front of everyone, especially in front of these influential people, Yu Haoran didn't give him any face at all. Gao Wanping was thoroughly enraged by Yu Haoran's order. Mobilizing his spirit in Yuan Li, Gao Wanping planned to force his way into the Qingyao Pavilion and confront Yu Haoran, asking him if he really didn't put him, his martial uncle, in his eyes. Fortunately, Meng Yun, who sensed that something was wrong, firmly held Gao Wanping back and whispered in his ear to persuade him. After Meng Yun's persuasion, although Gao Wanping temporarily gave up the idea of forcing his way into the Qingyao Pavilion, his eyes still revealed a deep hatred when he looked at He Xiong and the Qingyao Pavilion. After giving He Xiong the order, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and calmed his emotions before continuing to fuse the remaining 36 drops of spirit liquid. At first, the fusion was relatively simple and the speed was also very fast. However, after fusing 72 drops of spirit liquid, the volume of the spirit liquid in the pill furnace was almost the size of a watermelon. At this time, he not only needed to continue fusing the spirit liquid, he also needed to control the pill fire to prevent the volume of the spirit liquid from increasing after the fusion. This required strict control of the technique. He didn't dare to be distracted in the slightest as he fused the spirit liquid drop by drop. After spending nearly 3 hours, he finally managed to fuse all 108 drops of spirit liquid together. Although the fusion process was rather forceful, in the end, the volume of the spirit liquid was controlled and did not exceed the warning line. In other words, it was controlled to the size of a watermelon. Brother Yu, watch me next. Right after Yu Haoran had barely fused the 108 drops of spirit liquid, Xiang Wenxuan, who'd recovered to his peak state, immediately took over. Brother Xiang, do your best to purify the last of the impurities in the spirit liquid, Yu Haoran instructed as he removed the technique used to control the spirit liquid. Don't worry, I know what to do. Xiang Wenxuan nodded with a serious expression. He continued to use his peak 8th grade martial royal realm spiritual soul and Yuan Li to refine the spiritual liquid. Yu Haoran spoke to Thaling and the victor as he consumed the pills he had prepared beforehand to quickly recover his energy in Yuan Li. Thaling, after Brother Xiang purifies the spirit liquid, I'll have to start condensing, forming, dividing, and forming the pill. I can't spare any energy for the time being. In case anything happens at the scene, you can temporarily possess the body of the black bear and use its body to help me resist the enemies. Yu Haoran, don't worry about refining the 5 Lives Mystery Gate pill. I've already used my mind to set up a formation around the Qingyao Pavilion. Unless it's a peerless expert like Emperor Qin, no one will disturb you for half an hour. Knowing that whether the 5 Lives Mystery Gate pill could be successfully refined or not was related to Yu Haoran's next plan, Thaling hurriedly comforted him. Sorry to trouble you. After thanking him, Yu Haoran immediately tried his best to recover his energy in Yuan Li. Compared to purifying the impurities of a single spirit medicine, directly refining the impurities of 108 spirit liquids was also a great challenge for Xiang Wenxuan. What's more, the 108 drops of spirit liquids fused together would produce new impurities. Therefore, Xiang Wenxuan carefully refined every trace of spirit liquid, afraid that if there were any flaws, it would affect Yu Haoran's next pill condensation. After spending nearly 3 hours, the spirit liquid that was originally the size of a watermelon shrank to the size of an apple under Xiang Wenxuan's best efforts. Brother Yu, to be able to refine to this extent is already my limit. Seeing that Yu Haoran had returned to his peak state and was planning to take over, Xiang Wenxuan indicated with a little embarrassment. Brother Xiang, to be able to refine the spirit liquid of 108 spirit medicines to this extent has already far exceeded my expectations. Shaking his head, Yu Haoran sincerely comforted him. Originally, according to his understanding of Xiang Wenxuan's alchemy level in his previous life, being able to purify and compress a watermelon-sized spirit liquid to the size of a snow peach was already considered an extraordinary performance. Now, it seemed that the trace of alchemy knowledge left behind by Pill, Saint Miao Zun, and the Cauldron had greatly improved Xiang Wenxuan's alchemy skills. Brother Xiang, I'll have to trouble you to protect me from now on. I need to do my best to prepare for the final 4 steps of pill formation. Brother Yu, I understand. Nodding heavily, Xiang Wenxuan directly stood up and then stood still about 3 meters away from the cauldron. On one hand, he used the elixir to recover the soul and yuan li that he had just consumed, and on the other hand, he used his divine sense to be vigilant of the surrounding situation. After all, as a grandmaster in alchemy, he knew that the moment the 5 Lives mysterious gate pill was condensed, it would gradually produce a phenomenon. When the pill was finally formed, the phenomenon of heaven and earth would affect the entire Xianyang city. On the other hand, as the capital of the Grand Qin Empire, Xianyang City was filled with all sorts of people, and no one could guarantee that no one would harbor ill intent and disturb Yu Haoran's pill refinement. He took out a few pills that could instantly recover his energy and yuan li and placed them under the tip of his tongue. He planned to use them to recover his energy and yuan li as soon as he ran out. Then, Yu Haoran poured all his energy into the second important step of refining the 5 Lives mysterious gate pill formation. Pill formation was to compress the apple-sized spirit liquid through the cauldron's fire and pill formation technique, causing it to condense into a solid state. Therefore, the process of pill formation had very high requirements for the control of the cauldron's fire and the technique used to form the seals. Just as Yu Haoran was preparing to condense the pill, Feng Yun and Jiang Yin, who had already prepared all kinds of resources for the transaction, used the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's information channel to return to the Qingyao Pavilion. When they saw the people standing 30 meters away from the Qingyao Pavilion, Feng Yun and Jiang Yin looked at each other and found that there was a trace of doubt in each other's eyes. Fortunately, Feng Yun knew most of the people present. Through a simple interrogation and communication, he knew what was happening in the Qingyao Pavilion. Thinking of the 108 kinds of 5th and 9th rank spiritual herbs that Yu Haoran used to trade with Qin Tianyi, Meng Sheng, and the others, Feng Yun and Jiang Yin knew that Yu Haoran must be refining a peerless pill with amazing medicinal effects. Chapter 577 Qingyuan Guild Hall, in front of the Qingyao Pavilion. Just as Feng Yun and Jiang Yin stood still, a faint clap of thunder came from the Qingyao Pavilion. The clap of thunder was very weak, so weak that only Meng Yun and Gao Wanping, who had maintained their peak strength and had not been poisoned by the Snake Beauty's poison, could vaguely hear it. Meng Yun and Gao Wanping exchanged glances and realized that the hatred in Gao Wanping's eyes had gradually been replaced by shock. Less than 10 seconds after the first clap of thunder, a second clap of thunder sounded. Compared to the first clap of thunder, the second clap of thunder was much louder. At least, most people present could hear the roar formed by the clap of thunder. Hey, why is there thunder in the clear sky? A young man in embroidered clothes, who had not yet noticed the abnormality of the clap of thunder, asked the person beside him with a puzzled expression. Chill. A middle-aged man in embroidered clothes beside the young man gestured for the young man to be quiet with a serious expression before explaining in a low voice. The clap of thunder just now came from the Qingyao Pavilion where the Grandmaster is. Afraid that his surprised voice would disturb Yu Haoran in the Qingyao Pavilion, the young man in embroidered clothes covered his mouth tightly with his hand. His eyes were as wide as a bull's as he stared unblinkingly at the Qingya pavilion. Although the people present were not alchemists proficient in alchemy, as the nobles of Xianyang City, they had some understanding of the different grades of pills. A pill that could form such a phenomenon during the refining process was not only a top pill that had reached the 4th rank or above, but also a pill that had a special effect among the 4th rank pills. Didn't they say that Yu Haoran was only an alchemy grandmaster? Then why was he able to refine pills of grade 4 and above that had special effects? Actually, it was not only the young man in embroidered clothes who had this question in his heart. The people present who understood the grades of pills also had this question in their hearts. Although alchemy grandmasters had noble statuses and were basically on par with martial sages, they were far from being able to influence the trend of the entire continent. However, if one was an alchemy grandmaster, the situation would be completely different. This was because the status and influence of an alchemy grandmaster were not inferior to the sect masters of the 7 top sections. In some aspects, their influence far surpassed the sect masters of the top sections. Boom! Just as everyone was wondering whether Yu Haoran's alchemy realm was an alchemy grandmaster or an alchemy grandmaster, a third clap of thunder rang out in the Qingya pavilion. Compared to the previous 2 claps of thunder, the Qingya pavilion not only was the sound of thunder's voice, but also covered a wider area's range of thunder. It was covered a wider area. Boom! Just as everyone was shocked by the strange phenomenon brought about by the 3rd clap of thunder, the 4th clap of thunder sounded in the Qingya pavilion. If the first thunderclap was so weak that only Gao Wanping and Meng Yun could hear it, the second thunderclap could only be heard within 50 meters of the Qingya pavilion, and the 3rd thunderclap could only be heard in the Qingyuan Guild Hall. The of the pavilions of the sky, the of. If it was a cloudy day with dark clouds, the people in Xianyang City wouldn't be surprised at all if thunder suddenly rang in their ears. But now, it was a clear and sunny day. The sudden clap of thunder immediately attracted the attention of many people, especially those martial sages. They could vaguely feel that the power of laws they had comprehended was almost out of control due to the influence of the thunder. In the majestic and quiet imperial palace, Emperor Qin was reviewing memorials in a bright and spacious study. When the 4th clap of thunder rang out, he suddenly stopped writing and raised his head to look towards the south with a solemn expression. A trace of vigor gradually rose in his calm eyes. When the 4th clap of thunder rang out, the dark clouds above the Qingya pavilion began to churn. In the Qingya pavilion, a light breeze began to blow. Yu Haoran, who was sitting cross-legged in front of the alchemy furnace, not only was his expression abnormally nervous, beads of sweat were dripping from his forehead like rain. Yu Haoran took a deep breath as he looked at the originally apple-sized spiritual liquid that had been compressed to the size of a walnut by his alchemy fire and alchemy technique. However, the shape of the spiritual liquid had yet to completely form into a pill. As his hands rapidly formed seals, he began to use the spiritual sense that his soul had unexpectedly obtained when his cultivation and physical body had broken through to the 10th level of the martial master realm. He used his spiritual sense to further increase the power of his alchemy fire. When the spiritual liquid that had been compressed to the size of a walnut in the alchemy furnace had completely formed into a dark pill, the 5th clap of thunder rang out from within the pill. Although the 5th clap of thunder was not as loud as the 4th clap of thunder, there was a unique power within the clap of thunder that allowed all the cultivators in Xianyang City to sense the meaning of the clap of thunder. One after another, cultivators of the martial ancestor realm and above left their places of cultivation, restaurants, brothels, and residences to search for the source of the clap of thunder. Thaling, who had been using his spiritual sense to monitor the area within tens of thousands of meters of the Qingyuan Guild Hall, quickly discovered that some cultivators were rushing over and felt slightly anxious. He did not know what the intentions of those cultivators who were rushing over were, or whether they would affect Yu Haoran's alchemy. However, no matter how anxious he was, Thaling did not disturb Yu Haoran, who was concentrating on alchemy. Instead, he used a thread of his spiritual sense to attach to the black bear in advance, intending to wait for the moment when the array he had set up was broken before possessing the black bear to kill those cultivators who had rushed into the courtyard. Xiang Wenxuan, who had also sensed the meaning of the fifth clap of thunder, had a slight change in expression. Glancing at Yu Haoran, who was speeding up the alchemy process, Xiang Wenxuan immediately rose into the air, intending to use his status as an alchemy grandmaster and an elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters to temporarily hold off Yu Haoran for a period of time. As Yu Haoran began the alchemy process, although the clap of thunder was no longer coming from the alchemy, the dark clouds above the Qingyao Pavilion not only became thicker and thicker, but also expanded to cover an increasingly large area. Soon, they enveloped the entire Qingyuan Guild Hall. At this moment, any cultivator who had broken through the martial ancestor realm would be able to use their spiritual sense to immediately discover the source of the strange phenomenon. The first batch of cultivators who had arrived at the Qingyuan Guild Hall had originally wanted to charge straight into the Guild Hall, but when they saw the vermilion doors of the Guild Hall and the stone-lined statues on both sides of the doors, they immediately stopped in their tracks. The Qingyuan Guild Hall belonged to the Grand Council of the Emperor Qin's empire and was an official inn. Without the approval of the imperial family and the Grand Council, anyone who dared to barge into the Qingyuan Guild Hall would be violating the laws of the Great Qin Empire. Chapter 578. In the study of the Imperial Palace in the inner city. As the fifth clap of thunder faded away, Emperor Qin put down the golden brush in his hand and slowly closed his eyes. Immediately after, a figure that looked exactly like him but was several times smaller appeared above Emperor Qin's head. The figure leapt lightly, ignoring the obstruction of the study's walls and directly passing through the study. With a speed that was several hundred times faster than lightning, it directly charged towards the Qingyuan Guild Hall that had produced this strange phenomenon. About 20 li away from the Imperial Palace in the inner city, in a magnificent mansion. Similarly, a figure that was only 10 centimeters tall ignored the obstruction of space and charged towards the Qingyuan Guild Hall that had produced the strange phenomenon with a speed that was several hundred times faster than lightning. Just as the figure left the mansion, a young man in his 20s with an extraordinary aura appeared in the sky above the mansion. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the dark clouds. Then, his entire body turned into a bolt of lightning and similarly charged towards the Qingyuan Guild Hall under the dark clouds. For a moment, all the martial sages in the entire Xianyang city were attracted by the fifth clap of thunder and the dark clouds above the Qingyuan Guild Hall. They either used the method of separating their spirit from their bodies or directly moved out with their real bodies and rushed towards the Qingyuan Guild Hall. In the Qingyao Pavilion, using the dozens of years of alchemy experience from his previous life, Yu Haoran did his best to execute the secret technique of dividing the pills. He hoped that he would be able to successfully separate a few more pills when dividing the pills, so that he and Wu Jingjun could each have a 5 lives mystery gate pill after dealing with the person in the Imperial Palace. However, the final result of dividing the pills was that only 2 of the 9 pills successfully activated the power of the Dream Return Realm. The remaining 7 pills became useless pills. Even for the 2 pills that had successfully activated the power of the Dream Return Realm, Yu Haoran did not have 100% confidence that he would be able to successfully form the pills in the end. After all, the 2 pills still had to bear the final tribulation when the pills were formed. He bent his tongue and swallowed a few pills that he had placed on the tip of his tongue in advance. Then, he used the pills to recover the energy and origin power that he had expended when condensing, forming, and splitting the pills. At the same time, he used the alchemic fire to slowly nourish the 2 pills, allowing them to continuously increase their defensive power so that they would be able to deal with the calamity that would befall them after leaving the cauldron. Just as Yu Haoran was using his alchemic fire to nourish the 2 pills, outside the Clear Source Guild Hall, a worker was looking at the endless stream of cultivators rushing over with a frightened expression. Even though the cultivators gathered outside the Pure Source Guild Hall were afraid of the Great Qin Empire's laws and didn't dare to rashly barge into the Pure Source Guild Hall, as more and more cultivators arrived, The Pure Source Guild Hall's employees knew that sooner or later, there would be people who didn't fear the Great Qin Empire's laws and forcefully barge into the Pure Source Guild Hall. Especially when he saw Meng Sheng, who had just left yesterday and rushed back today. He knew that he could no longer deal with the thorny situation in front of him. Fortunately, Meng Yun, who was in charge of the Clear Source Guild Hall, was currently in the guild hall. Therefore, the guild hall's attendant hurriedly bolted the vermilion door and used his movement martial skill to rush to the Qingyao Pavilion. In the air above the Qingyao Pavilion, Xiang Wenxuan raised his head to look at the void above, the expression on his face growing more and more serious. Everyone, due to the influence of my own strength, although I, Xiang Wenxuan, am unable to determine your location and origins, Grandmaster Yu is now at a critical juncture. I hope that everyone can give me, Xiang Wenxuan, and the Medicine King's Valley face and not disturb Grandmaster Yu's pill refinement for the time being. Since he couldn't lock onto the experts hidden in the void with his divine sense, then he wouldn't be able to stop them with his own strength. Therefore, Xiang Wenxuan could only hope that those experts would be wary of the Medicine King's Valley's reputation and not disturb Yu Haoran for the time being. Grandmaster Xiang, I wonder what kind of pill that Grandmaster Alchemy is refining. An ethereal voice suddenly reverberated in all directions of the Qingyao Pavilion. 5 lives profound gate pill. Xiang Wenxuan didn't hide anything and directly pointed out the origin of the pill that Yu Haoran was refining at this moment. After hearing Xiang Wenxuan's answer, not only the people outside the Qingyao Pavilion couldn't help but gasp, but there was also a shocked gasp in the void above the Qingyao Pavilion. Looking at each other, besides the shock in Gao Wanping's eyes, there was a trace of regret. He regretted his rashness just now. Grandmaster Xiang, could it be the 5 lives profound gate pill that can make use of the dream realm to reincarnate 5 times? The ethereal voice just now contained a trace of excitement as it asked. That's right. Nodding, Xiang Wenxuan lowered his head to look at Yu Haoran and continued to explain. According to Grandmaster Yu's current state, pill condensation, pill formation, and pill separation have all been successfully completed. Now, he should be using the pill fire to warm the separated pill. Therefore, I implore everyone to not disturb Grandmaster Yu for the time being, so that he can successfully complete the last step of pill formation. Yes, the ethereal voice gave Xiang Wenxuan a pleasantly surprised answer. But at this moment, a flurry of footsteps suddenly came from outside the Qingyao Pavilion. Hurriedly turning his head to look, he found that hundreds or even thousands of people were rushing over quickly. Xiang Wenxuan could not help but change his expression. This was because hundreds and thousands of warriors above the martial ancestor realm gathered together and condensed an aura that was very shocking. If this aura reached the Qingyao Pavilion, it would definitely affect the gathering power above the Qingyao Pavilion to give the 5 lives profound gate pill the final tribulation. It was also the key power of the dream realm reincarnation of the 5 lives profound gate pill. Therefore, Xiang Wenxuan temporarily ignored the hidden experts above his head and quickly rushed in front of the group of warriors who were rushing over and stopped them. Third Prince, please stop. Facing the leading third prince, Qin Tianyi, Xiang Wenxuan stopped him with a displeased expression. Get out of the way. Looking up at Xiang Wenxuan, who was in midair, Qin Tianyi ordered coldly. Third Prince, Grandmaster Yu is at a critical moment in alchemy and cannot be affected at all, so this old man hopes that your highness can wait here for a while. Seeing Qin Tianyi ordering him like a subordinate, Xiang Wenxuan's face instantly darkened. But considering that Yu Haoran in the Qingyao Pavilion was at the most critical moment, he could only suppress the anger in his heart and continue to persuade. Xiang Wenxuan, this prince's patience is not enough, and I don't want to see the Medicine King Valley lose such an outstanding alchemy master like you. Qin Tianyi threatened murderously. Third Prince, don't forget, the reason why you were able to cure the Snake Beauty's poison was thanks to Grandmaster Yu's help and the detoxification pill that you refined. You and all of you are completely biting the hand that feeds you. Xiang Wenxuan angrily pointed out. Xiang Wenchuan originally gave Qin Tianyi an evaluation when he used people, not when he used people. But now it seemed that he had overestimated Qin Tianyi's temperament. This person was completely narrow-minded, a sinister villain who bit the hand that fed him. Chapter 579. Qingyuan Guild Hall, outside Qingyao Pavilion. Dark clouds covered the sky. Emperor Qin's spirit, who was hidden in the void, saw Qin Tianyi's narrow-minded side. Although his expression did not change in the slightest, a trace of disappointment flashed in his eyes. It was as if the Qin Tianyi below was different from the Qin Tianyi he thought highly of. Xiang Wenchuan, your accusation just now was unreasonable. Facing Xiang Wenchuan's accusation, Meng Sheng, who was standing behind Qin Tianyi, suddenly walked out and refuted loudly. Although the antidote pill was refined by Yu Haoran, we also paid a great price to exchange for it. Therefore, he did not do us any favors, and we do not owe him anything. Now we can't talk about repaying kindness with enmity. Is that so? Facing Meng Sheng's refutation, Xiang Wenchuan could not help but sneer. His expression was full of anger as he shouted. Meng Sheng, at that time in the ruins of the Hidden Art Pavilion, you and the third prince were not the only ones who were poisoned by the beautiful snake. Why did Master Yu refine the antidote pill for you first? Why did he let you recover your spirit and you only first? Don't tell me that you, Meng Sheng, don't cover your chest and ask yourself if your conscience is still there. Xiang Wenchuan, I don't want to talk nonsense anymore. Hurry up and get on my way. Just as Xiang Wenchuan had asked earlier, there were more than 100 people who had been poisoned by the beautiful snake's venom. It didn't matter if Yu Haoran was afraid of their identities or if he wanted to exchange it for some urgently needed spiritual medicine. To be able to help them get rid of the beautiful snake's poison in time and prevent them from falling into danger, they owed Yu Haoran a huge favor. However, he now had to stop Yu Haoran from refining the pill, because the pill that Yu Haoran was refining now was very likely to cause unrest in the Emperor Qin Kingdom. It was even possible that the Emperor Qin Kingdom would fall in a civil strife. Therefore, he could only ignore Yu Haoran's kindness now and encourage Meng Sheng and the others to accompany him to destroy Yu Haoran's plan to refine the pill. Your Highness, what if this old man doesn't step aside? Faced with the threat of Qin Tianyi, who was a martial sage, Xiang Wenchuan, who was only a peak 8th grade martial king, asked fearlessly. In the face of Xiang Wenchuan's fearless obstruction, Qin Tianyi felt helpless, but at the same time, he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that Xiang Wenchuan was an alchemy grandmaster and an elder of Medicine King Valley, the impact of killing him would be too bad. According to Qin Tianyi's character, she would have let her subordinates blast the other party into minced meat. Elder Feng, watch him for me. Although he couldn't kill Xiang Wenchuan, it wasn't very troublesome to control him and prevent him from interrupting Yu Haoran's alchemy plan. Elder Feng, who had reached the peak of the 7th grade martial saint realm, immediately appeared before Xiang Wenchuan. His aura, which contained the power of comprehending the laws, immediately enveloped Xiang Wenchuan, preventing him from continuing to obstruct the actions of the third Prince Qin Tianyi while ensuring that he would not suffer any harm. Seeing that Elder Feng had used his aura to control Xiang Wenchuan, Qin Tianyi expressionlessly walked past him and headed straight for the Qingyao Pavilion. Just as Qin Tianyi was less than 30 meters away from the Qingyao Pavilion and everyone's aura was about to affect the dense clouds, the void above the dense clouds suddenly churned, forcing Qin Tianyi to stop in his tracks. Qin Tianyi, who knew what kind of heaven-defying pill Yu Haoran was refining, knew that the pill that was about to come out of the furnace was a crazy temptation to those hidden in the void. In order to prevent him from disrupting Yu Haoran's alchemy plan, some people would very likely attack him. With his own strength, he wouldn't be able to block an attack from those people in the void. Just as he was considering whether to take the risk and continue approaching the Qingyao Pavilion, the sound of thunder suddenly came from the dense clouds below. Accompanied by the sound of thunder, dazzling lightning appeared one after another in the dense clouds. When the pill was completed, lightning appeared. This was the appearance of the 5 lives profound gate pill. Qin Tianyi, who was still hesitating, immediately made a decision after seeing the lightning flashing in the dense clouds. Taking a deep breath, he strode towards the Qingyao Pavilion. Ayo! Seeing that Qin Tianyi had crossed the 30-meter warning line set by Yu Haoran, the black bear, standing behind the courtyard door, let out a sorrowful howl to the sky. Then it raised its 2 paws and fiercely slammed towards Qin Tianyi. The sorrowful howl was because the black bear knew that he was definitely not Qin Tianyi's opponent. The result of his attack would definitely be death. However, in order to protect Yu Haoran, who had already stood up and was about to start refining the pill, the black bear could only use the painful price of death to block the other party, even if it was just for a second. Courting death. Looking at the rapidly approaching bear paw, Qin Tianyi sneered and raised his left hand. He stretched out a finger and directly pointed at the bear paw that the black bear was waving at him. Relying on the black bear's peak 5th rank, 9th rank cultivation, the true strength of the bear's paw was already close to the martial sage realm. However, in the face of Qin Tianyi's outstretched finger, it was like a piece of white paper meeting a sharp weapon and was easily broken. Ignoring the bear's blood that splattered all over the sky, the finger that did not lose any strength quickly pointed at the black bear's forehead. Looking at the black bear that was about to die under Qin Tianyi's finger, the fouling in Yu Haoran's sea of consciousness revealed a hesitant expression. It wasn't that he didn't want to save He Xiong, but because of the sudden appearance of 3 soul bodies in the void above Qingyao Pavilion, he didn't dare to help. Nor could he use the soul possession technique to increase He Xiong's strength. Looking at the black bear that was about to die under Qin Tianyi's finger, Gao Wanping did not feel the slightest joy of revenge in his heart. There was only endless pity and sadness in his heart. Looking at the black bear that was about to die under Qin Tianyi's finger, Xiang Wenxuan, who was suppressed by Elder Feng's power of law, revealed an incomparably anxious expression. Looking at the black bear that was about to die under Qin Tianyi's finger, none of the experts in the void stepped in to save it. Looking at the black bear that was about to die under her finger, a smug expression appeared on Qin Tianyi's face. And when Qin Tianyi's finger was less than 10 centimeters away from the black bear's forehead, and the black bear had already closed its eyes and waited for death to descend, the word break suddenly came from Yu Haoran's mouth, causing Qin Tianyi's finger to instantly shatter. Yu Haoran, what kind of method did you use? Without any fluctuations of power or power of law, just the word break directly shattered the spirit finger that contained the power of law. Qin Tianyi was frightened by Yu Haoran's method and could not help but shout loudly. In fact, Qin Tianyi was not the only one who was terrified. Meng Sheng, who was beside her, Elder Feng, who was using the power of law to suppress Xiang Wenxuan, all the martial sages present, and the experts hiding in the void above Qingyao Pavilion all showed a trace of fear on their faces. Chapter 580. Qingyuan Guild Hall, Qingyao Pavilion. Black Bear, you go down and heal first. Yu Haoran instructed He Xiong in a gentle voice as he continued to nourish the 2 pills in the cauldron with his alchemic fire. He took out the best healing pills from the domain tower and tossed them to He Xiong. When Black Bear shrunk its body and revealed its arms that had lost its paws, Yu Haoran felt a lump in his throat. He looked at Black Bear with eyes full of gratitude and determination. Then he withdrew his gaze from Black Bear, took a deep breath, and removed the alchemy fire that was warming the 2 pills. Then his hands moved quickly. His 10 fingers were like jumping elves, quickly forming seals. Every time a seal was formed, the seal would quickly merge with the 2 pills in the furnace. Seeing that Yu Haoran did not pay any attention to her questioning, and that the lightning in the dense clouds above Qingyao Pavilion was becoming more and more dazzling, Qin Tianyi could not help but have a sullen expression. The palm that she had just raised pressed slightly towards Qingyao Pavilion. An invisible force that contained traces of heavenly might directly slapped the entire Qingyao Pavilion. Yu Haoran, who had already formed 7 seals, felt the invisible force quickly attacking his head, and a trace of anger flashed across his face. His hands that were rapidly forming seals did not stop. He raised his head and shouted at the invisible force that was quickly attacking him, "Break!" There was still no fluctuation of power or the power of laws. The invisible force that contained traces of heavenly might disappeared without a trace in an instant. This made Qin Tianyi take 3 steps back in horror. After shouting back the invisible force above his head, Yu Haoran mobilized all of his Yuan Li and divine sense to speed up the speed of forming seals. When the 9th seal was formed, it was imprinted on the 2 pills in the furnace. Yu Haoran stretched out his left hand and slapped the furnace with all his might and shouted loudly, "The pills are done!" Accompanied by Yu Haoran's shout, 2 pills the size of a longan flew out from the furnace. They were sparkling and translucent, exuding a soul-stirring fragrance. Just as the 2 pills flew out of the cauldron and floated above the cauldron, a dazzling bolt of lightning shot out from the dense clouds above. At this moment, whether or not the 2 pills could block the lightning and absorb the power of samsara within the lightning would depend on the luck of the 2 pills. He was powerless to interfere. So, Yu Haoran directly put away the cauldron and took a few steps back. After that, he took out a medicinal pill and consumed it. As he recovered his energy and origin energy, he stared fixedly at the 2 medicinal pills in mid-air. Outside the Qingyao Pavilion, looking at the 2 pills that were enduring the lightning strikes, Qin Tianyi's eyes revealed endless annoyance. Because at this time, no matter if it was him, Yu Haoran, or those experts at the peak of the 9th level martial saint in the void, no one could destroy the pill that was withstanding the lightning strike. They could only watch as the pill was finally struck into powder by the lightning, or finally become the 5 lives profound gate pill that could be used to enter the cycle of reincarnation through the dream. After the first lightning, the 2 pills floating in the air were still sparkling and translucent, but they were slightly smaller. Less than 3 seconds after the first lightning, the second lightning shot out from the dense clouds. Compared to the first lightning that was as thin as a hair, the second lightning was almost the size of a hair. After the second lightning disappeared, everyone hurriedly looked at the 2 pills. They found that the 2 pills continued to shrink, but their color did not change. The third lightning that was like a chopstick flew out from the dense clouds at the moment the second lightning disappeared, and then heavily blasted the 2 pills. Boom! As the third bolt of lightning struck the 2 pills that were originally close to each other were immediately separated. Fortunately, except for the continued shrinking, the color of the 2 pills still did not change much. Boom! After the third lightning disappeared, the fourth lightning that was as thick as a tree branch in the dense clouds heavily blasted the 2 pills. After the fourth lightning disappeared, whether it was Yu Haoran, Xiang Wenxuan, or those experts hiding in the void above their heads, they all showed a trace of pity on their faces. Because after the fourth lightning, the pill that was closer to the wall of the 2 pills not only dimmed slightly, but also had a slight crack on its surface. This also meant that under the fourth lightning tribulation, this pill had suffered a certain amount of damage. According to the increase in the threat of each lightning strike, this pill that had already suffered a heavy blow would probably be unable to fuse with the reincarnation power in the lightning, and ultimately fail to form the pill. Fortunately, the other pill not only shrunk to the size of a cherry, but its color was not only more sparkling and translucent, but there was also an indistinct shape faintly appearing inside the pill. After the fourth lightning, the dense clouds above the pill suddenly began to shrink. As the dense clouds shrank, the lightning that flashed in the dense clouds gradually merged together. Boom! When the dense clouds shrunk to a length of 3 meters, a lightning bolt that was as thick as a bull fiercely blasted the 2 pills like a roaring dragon. Accompanied by a crisp sound, a trace of a sigh flashed across the hearts of everyone present at the scene at the same time. Because this crisp shattering sound meant that the pill that had suffered a heavy blow under the fourth lightning bolt was completely shattered. Looking up to observe the pill that was being struck by lightning, Yu Haoran's face suddenly flashed with a trace of joy after the crisp, shattering sound disappeared. He channeled his elemental energy towards the lightning, and a small pile of black ashes appeared in his hand. After carefully sniffing the smell of the black ashes in his hand, his joy was immediately replaced by ecstasy. Fortunately, everyone's attention was all on the fifth lightning bolt. Apart from Emperor Qin, who slightly noticed Yu Haoran's actions just now, no one else noticed. Not only was the fifth lightning bolt larger in size, but it also struck for a longer time. After a full 5 seconds, the fifth lightning bolt finally disappeared. And at the moment when the fifth lightning bolt disappeared, the last pill that was floating in midair not only returned to the size of a longan, but its color was also close to a transparent state. More importantly, there were 5 purple halos on the surface of the pill that was close to a transparent state. Each of the halos gave people an illusion that it was not real and that it was not a dream. After the fifth lightning bolt, the dense clouds above the pill did not disappear. Instead, its color gradually turned milky white, and it emitted a trace of aura that made people feel extremely comfortable. When the dense clouds that were 3 meters long had completely turned into a milky white gas, 2 strong suction forces suddenly came from the pill that was floating in midair and from Yu Haoran's body. These 2 strong suction forces directly acted on the milky white gas in midair and began to swallow the milky white gas like a whale swallowing water. Chapter 581. Qingyuan Guild Hall, Qingya Pavilion. This was because the milky white gas that was transformed from lightning and dense clouds was a reward from the heavenly Tao for defying the heavens and successfully transcending the lightning tribulation. It was a special energy that allowed one to be reborn. To the 5 lives profound gate pill, this special energy was the energy that increased the power of reincarnation. However, to Yu Haoran, it was a heaven-defying energy that could increase his talent, potential, perseverance, and comprehension in all aspects. However, everyone was only envious and jealous. They did not dare to rush into the Qingya Pavilion to fight for the milky white energy. This was because Yu Haoran, as the person who refined the 5 lives profound gate pill, was also doing something that defied the heavens. When the 5 lives profound gate pill withstood the 5 lightning tribulations, it meant that Yu Haoran had also been baptized by the lightning tribulation. The success of the 5 lives profound gate pill in transcending the lightning tribulation also meant that Yu Haoran had transcended the lightning tribulation. Therefore, Yu Haoran was able to absorb the milky white energy that allowed him to be reborn under the rules of the heavenly Tao. Whoever dared to fight for it would be violating the rules of the heavenly Tao. As for the consequences of violating the rules of the heavenly Tao, not to mention the people present, even a peerless expert in the martial saint realm would not be able to bear it. Therefore, everyone could only watch as Yu Haoran underwent a rebirth under the nourishment of the floating white energy. The 3-meter-long dense clouds and the milky white energy transformed by countless lightning bolts were a lot, but they could not withstand the crazy devouring of the 5 lives profound gate pill. Just as Yu Haoran felt that his aptitude was about to undergo a fundamental change, the energy that could allow him to be reborn instantly disappeared without a trace. This made him feel disappointed. However, when he was refining the 5 lives profound gate pill, he did not consider the rewards of the heavenly Tao after the pill passed the lightning tribulation. Now, being able to obtain the milky white energy that could increase his aptitude was already a pleasant surprise. Standing up and looking at the pill that was fusing with the milky white energy, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and quickly formed seals with his hands. At this moment, whether it was the experts hidden in the void or Xiang Wenshuan, who was proficient in the Tao of pills and had obtained a freedom to fly, none of them understood why Yu Haoran was forming seals. However, as a peak alchemy grandmaster who could refine a pill that could withstand the thunder tribulation, no matter what Yu Haoran was doing, no one present dared to stop him. Moreover, the 5 lives profound gate pill floating in the air was still fusing with the milky white energy. It was not time to collect it yet. Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief as he formed a seal with his 10 fingers and imprinted it on the medicinal pill floating in the air. Then he walked to the stone table and sat on the stone chair again, quietly waiting for the 5 live mysterious gate pill to fuse with the special energy. After passing the thunder retribution and integrating the power of samsara, the 5 lives profound gate pill was successfully refined. Qin Tianyi looked up at the void, and his face showed deep worry. However, although the fate of the great Emperor Qin Kingdom was in the hands of the 2 people hidden in the void above their heads, the person who could decide the fate of these 2 people was Yu Haoran, who was sitting on the stone chair. After closing his eyes and pondering for a while, Qin Tianyi turned his head and instructed Elder Feng. Elder Feng, I'll have to trouble you to immediately return to the palace and bring Princess Ling Fei over as soon as possible. Yes, no matter how high your cultivation was or how strong your strength was, your identity as a guard determined that you could only listen to orders. Therefore, in the face of the upcoming pill-snatching grand event, although Elder Feng didn't want to leave, he could only obediently leave without any hesitation. Suddenly bringing Princess Ling Fei over, Meng Sheng felt very puzzled by Qin Tianyi's inexplicable actions. However, Qin Tianyi was unwilling to take the initiative to explain, so he could only wait. However, at this moment, a trace of regret emerged in Meng Sheng's heart. Although he didn't know what kind of Dan Yu Haoran had just refined, to be able to produce a heavenly vision and attract a lightning tribulation when the Dan was completed, it was enough to show that the Dan that had successfully passed through the lightning tribulation was no small matter. Yu Haoran, who was able to refine such an earth-shattering Dan, was afraid that his fame and reputation would reach a new height. Meng Sheng's actions of repaying kindness with enmity would lead to revenge, and whether it would affect his position in the Meng family. This was what Meng Sheng was worried about. However, the regretful Meng Sheng didn't notice that Meng Yun, who was standing beside Gao Wanping, was looking at Meng Sheng with an incomparably disappointed expression. At the back of the crowd, Jiang Yin quietly pulled on Feng Yun's sleeve and asked with her spiritual sense, "Consecrator Feng, in the current situation, should we cancel the plan to intercept and kill?" Shaking his head, Feng Yun raised his head and looked at the Dan that was fusing with the milky white energy. No, the plan to intercept and kill will not only continue as planned, but in order to ensure that the plan is 100% successful, you and I will have to take action and completely eliminate any hidden dangers. Otherwise, you and I will be the sinners of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's downfall in the future. Nodding, Jiang Yin knew what Feng Yun was truly worried about. With the earth-shattering alchemy ability that Yu Haoran had just displayed, his reputation was not far off from that of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, whose alchemy cultivation had reached the level of Great Grandmaster and the Head Elder. Moreover, he was not even 18 years old, which meant that Yu Haoran's future potential was limitless. His alchemy cultivation could possibly surpass that of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and the Head Elder. If Yu Haoran chose to support the other 2 chambers of commerce, whose influence was no less than that of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, then the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion could really fall from grace. Looking up at the Dan of 5 lives that was about to finish fusing with the milky white energy, the corners of Yu Haoran's mouth curled up slightly. Creak! But at this moment, the sound of the door opening suddenly came from behind, attracting Yu Haoran's attention. Turning his head to look, Yu Haoran found Wu Jingjun, who had walked out of the room, looking at him in confusion. "Jingjun, come here." He waved to Wu Jingjun, motioning for him to come to his side. "Senior brother, what happened?" Looking up at the Dan of 5 lives floating in mid-air and sensing the crowd outside the Qingyao Pavilion, Wu Jingjun asked in confusion. "Didn't you hear the thunder just now?" Yu Haoran asked, equally confused. The 5 thunderclaps during the condensation of the Dan, and the 5 thunderclaps during the lightning tribulation of the Dan of 5 lives. Even a dead person would wake up, but Wu Jingjun, who had been staying in the Qingyao Pavilion, did not hear it. How could he not be puzzled? No, I didn't hear any thunder. Shaking his head, Wu Zhengjun replied. Fouling, what's going on? Really unable to figure out Wu Zhengjuan's situation, Yu Haoran could only ask for help from Fouling in his sea of consciousness. Yu Haoran, I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. Zhengjuan's luck is really good. Faced with Yu Haoran's request for help, Fouling could not help but exclaim in surprise. Fouling, what's going on? Chapter 582. Qingyuan Guild Hall, Qingyu Pavilion. Yu Haoran, when you were condensing your core, the first thunderclap formed by the 5 lives profound gate pill actually allowed Jingjun to use the devouring mystic technique to dream back to ancient times and witness the growth of the blood demon. The blood demon's life experience broadened Zhengjuan's horizons. Not only did it allow his bloodthirsty physique to reach the peak of greater mastery, but it also vaguely showed signs of activating the bloodthirsty physique. It was also because of this that he didn't notice the thunderclap and the sound of thunder. After hearing Fouling's explanation, Yu Haoran looked at Wu Zhengjun with incomparable surprise. He had already seen the power of the blood shield when the bloodthirsty physique was fully activated. Then what kind of special ability would the bloodthirsty physique, which had reached the peak of greater mastery, have? What kind of heaven-defying increase would the vaguely activated bloodthirsty physique bring to his own cultivation and strength? Therefore, he urgently wanted to know now. Yu Haoran, because Zhengjun dreamt back to ancient times under the influence of the thunderclap. It's different from directly taking the 5 lives profound gate pill and using the dream reincarnation. Although he has now begun to gradually activate the bloodthirsty physique, the memories of the dream back to ancient times are hidden in the bloodthirsty physique. Therefore, don't ask him anything about the dream back to ancient times. Just pretend that nothing happened and let him search for the blood demon's memories hidden in the bloodthirsty physique. Seeing that Yu Haoran was about to ask Wu Zhengjun what happened in the dream, Fouling hurriedly reminded and exhorted. I know. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed the surprise in his heart. After replying to Fouling, Yu Haoran told Wu Zhengjun what happened during the refining of the pill. Senior brother, why didn't I hear the thunderclap? Wu Zhengjun continued to wonder why he didn't hear the thunderclap that could shake the entire Xianyang city apart for being shocked by Yu Haoran's astonishing alchemy cultivation. Zhengjun, I forgot to tell you just now. In order to prevent anyone from disturbing my pill refining, I set up a formation in the Qingyao Pavilion in advance. It's normal that you didn't hear it. In the face of Wu Zhengjuan's continuous entanglement of thunder, Yu Haoran could only use the means of lying to temporarily smooth things over. Fortunately, Wu Zhengjun had always believed in Yu Haoran and did not doubt the reason he gave. Senior brother, why is that pill moving on its own? Because Yu Haoran had turned his head to talk to Wu Zhengjun, his back was facing the medicinal pill, so he couldn't continue to pay attention to the situation of the medicinal pill. On the other hand, Wu Zhengjun was facing the pill in midair, so he immediately noticed the abnormality of the pill. Yu Haoran couldn't help but sneer when he turned his head to look at the pill that was moving back and forth in the air. Then he stood up and cupped his fists at the void above his head. Seniors hidden in the void, you want to compete for the 5 lives mysterious gate pill. Even if I have objections, I'm afraid I can't do anything about it because of my own cultivation. But I hope. At this point, Yu Haoran shook his head and changed his words. Junior requests that when seniors are fighting for the 5 lives profound gate pill, you can control your own strength. You can't destroy the plants in this courtyard, and you can't harm Junior or Junior's junior apprentice brother. Otherwise, at this point, he stretched out his finger and pointed at the 5 lives mysterious gate pill. Because of the struggle in the dark, the pill that was moving back and forth immediately stopped in midair. I will directly destroy the 5 lives mysterious gate pill. Anyway, with my current cultivation, I can't use this pill for the time being, and when I need it, I can continue to refine it. In fact, after the 5 lives mysterious gate pill successfully passed the thunder tribulation, Yu Haoran knew that the people hidden in the void would definitely not watch him put away the pill. Therefore, After fusing with the milky white energy that was rewarded by the heavenly Tao, he used a special pill controlling secret technique to control the 5 lives mysterious gate pill in advance. Now, not to mention those peak 9th grade martial saints hidden in the void, even if it was a peerless expert of the martial saint realm, they would not be able to take away the 5 lives mysterious gate pill under his nose. As Yu Haoran used his actions to prove that he could determine the safety of the 5 lives mysterious gate pill, the few people who were secretly competing for the pill immediately stopped fighting. He waved his hand at the pill in midair, and the 5 lives mysterious gate pill obediently fell into his hand. Then he put it into the pill bottle that he had prepared in advance. "Little friend, name a price." Just as Yu Haoran put the 5 lives mysterious gate pill into the pill bottle, an incomparably old but very gentle voice suddenly sounded from the void. "Senior Yu, I know what kind of heaven-defying effect the 5 lives mysterious gate pill has, and the other seniors also know. Therefore, if Senior wants to exchange the 5 lives mysterious gate pill with me, I need to see if Senior could take out something that can move me. In a transaction, especially in the case of a peerless treasure, the one who took the initiative to offer a price would always be the one who took the initiative to offer a price. For someone like Yu Haoran, who is more shrewd than a fox, how could he take the initiative to offer a price? Letting him take the initiative to offer a price." Hearing Yu Haoran's request, the expert who took the initiative to make a deal with him in the void was silent for a long time before he spoke. "Little friend, as far as I know, you are now the deputy sect master of the second-rate 100 Chi Gate. If this old man can make you the sect master of the sect, can I exchange it for the 5 lives mysterious gate pill?" Puffed. Hearing the conditions given by the old man in the void, Wu Zhijun, who was sitting on the stone chair, could not control the urge to laugh out loud. "Kid, what are you laughing at?" the expert in the void asked in an unfriendly tone. "Senior, I'm sorry." Under Yu Haoran's stern gaze, Wu Zhijun stood up and apologized to the expert in the void, explaining the reason for his laughter. The current sect master of the 100 Chi Gate is called Chu Zhongyu. He is the eldest senior brother of Yu Shixiang and I from the same sect. The reason why eldest senior brother was able to take the position of sect master was because I, Yu Shixiang, helped him succeed with my own strength. In other words, since I, Yu Shixiang, am coveting the position of sect master, my current identity is no longer the deputy sect master, but the sect master who rules the sect, as Senior said. Even the position of deputy sect master was temporarily taken up in order to participate in the Qin Alliance conference this time. Wu Jingjun did not suppress his voice when he explained. Regardless of whether it was the expert hidden in the void or the crowd outside the Qingyao Pavilion, they all heard him clearly. When they found out that Yu Haoran had actually taken the initiative to give up the position of sect master of second-rate sect, it was a huge blow to those who were obsessed with power struggles. Chapter 583. In the Qingyao Pavilion of the Qingyuan Guild Hall, faced with Wu Zhongjuan's explanation, the powerhouse in the void fell silent once again. However, this silence did not last long. "Little friend, can a 7th grade spirit vein be exchanged for the 5 lives mysterious gate elixir?" Before Yu Haoran could refuse, Xiang Wenxuan, who was flying toward Xinya Pavilion, took the initiative to refute on his behalf. "Senior, don't you know that for us alchemists, especially those who have reached the Grandmaster realm in alchemy, the one thing we don't lack the least is spirit stones?" Faced with the refutation of Xiang Wenxuan, who was also a peak alchemy grandmaster, the powerhouse in the void fell silent once again. Similarly, this silence did not last long before he raised another condition for the exchange. "Little friend, can a complete top-grade sage artifact be exchanged for the 5 lives mysterious gate elixir?" "Senior, when I was on my way to Xianyang City to attend the Qin Ming conference, I passed by the giant sword sect, which had been disloyal to our sect for a long time. I used my slight knowledge of formations to control the giant sword sect's mountain-protecting formation and personally seized a complete mid-grade Qi weapon. However, a complete middle-grade artifact was not suitable for me. In the end, I returned it to the great elder of the giant sword sect." Yu Haoran used his personal experience to indirectly reject the third condition proposed by the powerhouse in the void. The position of sect master, a 7th grade spirit vein that contains spirit stones, and a complete top-grade sage artifact. In the eyes of ordinary people, this was a goal that they would fight for their entire lives. However, Yuhaoran had only needed to raise his hand to obtain it. This made the people outside the Qingyao Pavilion feel envious and jealous. Faced with this situation, the powerhouse in the void fell silent for the 4th time. This time, the silence lasted longer than what everyone had been waiting for. As a result, the impatient Yuhaoran could not help but ask, "Senior, do you have any other treasures that can be exchanged for the 5 lives mysterious gate elixir?" Unfortunately, in the face of Yuhaoran's inquiry, the powerhouse in the void did not give any response. A rank 2 official, a general who leads millions of soldiers. I wonder if I can exchange it for the 5 lives mystical gate pill. Although the old powerhouse didn't give any response, the dignified voice that followed offered generous conditions in exchange for the 5-life mysterious gate pill. Hearing the conditions offered by the other expert in the void, the reactions of the people present varied. Qin Tiany's face sank when he heard that he was going to be given the position of a general who commanded millions of soldiers. He knew that the thing he was most worried about had happened. He didn't know if this competition for the 5 lives mysterious gate pill would completely intensify the conflict between the two of them that had been accumulating for a long time, causing a direct confrontation. On the other hand, Yuhaoran frowned when he heard the conditions of the Void Powerhouse giving him military power. In Xianyang, the capital of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, to be able to give a rank 2 official position and the position of a general who commanded millions of soldiers. Perhaps only the Emperor Qin could have such power. However, the voice that had just given him an official position and military power was obviously not the Emperor Qin. How could this not make Yuhaoran feel puzzled? However, whether it was military power or an official career, these were not what he was pursuing. Therefore, no matter who had just given him an official position and military power, Yuhaoran would not agree or accept it. "I'm sorry, Senior. This junior's ambition is not here." A high-grade rank 6 spirit vein, a complete low-grade exalt realm magic tool, a peerless beauty with the 3 meridians, and a promise from me, Prince Yifeng. Yuhaoran's rejection was not out of the expectations of the expert in the void. Therefore, he continued to offer a temptation that was difficult for anyone to refuse except for Yuhaoran. In a high-grade rank 6 spirit vein, in addition to a large number of rank 6 spirit stones from the 1st to the 9th grade, there would also be a certain amount of rank 5 spirit stones. If a high-grade rank 6 spirit vein existed for a long time, it might even produce a small portion of rank 4 spirit stones. This was an extremely strong temptation for anyone who wanted to break through to the Martial Saint realm or even the Martial Saint realm. If a complete low-grade Exalt realm magic tool was brought back to the 100 Chi Gate, even though the 100 Chi Gate had suffered a serious loss due to the conflict between the factions, the deterrence of a low-grade Exalt realm magic tool was enough to make the Qingshang sect, which was of the same level, not dare to act rashly. The peerless beauty with the 3 meridians was the real temptation that everyone present couldn't control. This was because a peerless beauty was filled with endless temptation. The 3 meridians, 6 meridians, and 9 meridians were the most suitable dual cultivation bodies in the Tianxian continent to increase one's cultivation. Although the 3 meridians could only increase the cultivation of a martial king realm martial artist by a large realm, it was the best dual cultivation body for Yuhaoran, who was only a martial master. Prince Yifeng's promise was what puzzled Yuhaoran. In his previous life, he had heard of Prince Yifeng's fame and knew that he was the biological brother of the current Emperor Qin. He had always had a good relationship with Emperor Qin. Therefore, after Emperor Qin ascended the throne, he was directly conferred the title of Prince Yifeng. He was one of the few princes in the entire Emperor Qin's kingdom. However, it was precisely because his relationship with Emperor Qin was too close that Prince Yifeng only accepted the title of prince in order to avoid suspicion. He did not hold any official position in the Qin kingdom. But now, it seemed that his understanding of Prince Yifeng in his previous life was wrong. The relationship between him and Emperor Qin was probably not as close as the rumors said. Vice sect leader Yu, how is this prince's sincerity? Facing Yu Haoran, who was frowning and deep in thought, Prince Yifeng's voice carried a trace of pride as he asked. Prince Yifeng, to be honest, I believe that most of the people present would find it difficult to refuse the conditions you just gave. Raising his head to look at the sky, Yu Haoran replied with a calm expression. But I'm sorry, Yu Haoran, happen to belong to that small group of people. Therefore, I refuse to accept the conditions you just gave me. Hearing Yu Haoran decisively reject Prince Yifeng's conditions, the faces of everyone present immediately revealed a trace of shock, because they really couldn't understand how Yu Haoran could control the desire in his heart in the face of such tempting conditions and resolutely refuse. After hearing Yu Haoran's refusal, Qin Tianyi couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. She looked at the void above her head with a trace of sadness in her eyes. Good, very good. To be able to resist the desire in his heart and decisively reject the tempting conditions he had just given, Prince Yifeng shouted twice. Soon after, the clouds in the sky began to churn up and down, causing everyone present to immediately become nervous. However, to everyone's surprise, the clouds churned for a while before calming down. Chapter 584. Qingyuan Guildhall, Qingyao Pavilion. Just as the clouds in the sky were completely silent, a shrill voice suddenly sounded from all directions of the Qingyao Pavilion. After hearing the shrill voice, except for Yu Haoran, Xiang Wenxuan, and Wu Jinjun, everyone present either knelt on both knees or one knee, respectfully bowing their heads to listen to the decree. Speak, Yu Haoran said indifferently as he looked up at the sky. By the command of the heavens and the clouds, the Emperor decrees that the deputy sect leader of the 100 Qi Gate, the Qin Alliance Conference head, the Peak Alchemy Grandmaster, the young talent Yu Haoran, enter the palace to meet the Emperor. Meet the Emperor. After hearing the contents of the decree, Yu Haoran laughed inexplicably. Senior brother, what are you laughing at? Wu Zhengjun, who didn't know what was going on, asked in confusion. Nothing. It seems that we will be able to return to Qingyuan Peak soon, Yu Haoran said with a chuckle as he shook his head. Then he cupped his fist towards the sky and shouted, Yu Haoran, receive the decree. Along with the voice of receiving the decree, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth within 100 miles of Qingyao Pavilion was condensed by an invisible force, finally forming a twin-axed imperial decree that shone with golden light. The twin-axed imperial decree slowly floated in front of Yu Haoran. He reached out to receive the imperial decree and carefully felt the energy contained in it. Finally, he cupped his fists helplessly to express his gratitude. The third prince requests to meet the Grandmaster. Just as Yu Haoran cupped his fists and thanked the Emperor, the clouds above Qingyao Pavilion gradually dissipated and the sunny sky was restored. At this moment, Qin Tianyi's voice suddenly came from outside Qingyao Pavilion. To be able to politely knock on the door and ask for an audience with the dignity of an emperor, it was enough to show that Qin Tianyi gave Yu Haoran a lot of face at this moment. Therefore, in Qin Tianyi's view, in the face of her request, Yu Haoran should immediately open the courtyard door and then welcome her with a face full of surprise. Unfortunately, after hearing Qin Tianyi's knock on the door, Yu Haoran not only did not take the initiative to open the door to greet her, but his face instantly became gloomy, and he suppressed the anger in his heart and said, This Grandmaster is already tired. Third Highness, please come another day. Qin Tianyi's original smiling face froze and was replaced by boundless anger. Qin Tianyi also suppressed the anger in her heart and threatened. Grandmaster Yu, are you not going to give me face? Qin Tianyi, perhaps others are afraid of your identity as the Emperor of Qin Kingdom and need to flatter you when facing you. But in the eyes of Yu Haoran, your identity as the Emperor of the Qin Kingdom is no different from that of an ordinary person. In the face of Qin Tianyi's threat, Yu Haoran scornfully retorted, Qin Tianyi, perhaps others are afraid of your strength in the martial sage realm and dare not to disobey any of your requests. But as long as I, Yu Haoran, stand in the Qingyao Pavilion, even if your strength has reached the peak of the 9th level martial sage realm, you can't hurt me. Yu Haoran's scornful and rude counterattack made Qin Tianyi suddenly think of the second time he used the power of law. Yu Haoran was standing in the Qingyao Pavilion, who was able to disperse the attack condensed by the power of law with just a light shout. This made Qin Tianyi unable to help but take 2 steps back in fear. For the first time, this was the first time he, Qin Tianyi, had been so despised since he was born. It was also the first time he had been threatened so blatantly. This made the anger in his heart burn fiercely like a flame of anger. Qin Tianyi turned his head to look at Elder Feng. When he was about to ask him to destroy the Qingyao Pavilion, he found that Elder Feng, who had always followed his orders, actually shook his head at him, indicating that he would definitely not destroy the Qingyao Pavilion, let alone kill Yu Haoran. Elder Feng's sudden change in attitude made Qin Tianyi suddenly think of the scene when the spiritual qi turned into the imperial edict. He immediately knew that in Xianyang City, no one would dare to make a move against Yu Haoran, except for those external sections. This made him feel depressed, as if he had nowhere to vent his anger. Master Yu, hello. My name is Qin Lingfei. Can I see you? Seeing that her third brother was rejected outside the door, Qin Lingfei, whose face was covered with a silk veil, was shocked. She also developed a strong interest in Yu Haoran, who dared to ignore her third brother. She could not help but take the initiative to knock on the door and ask to see him. Hearing that Qin Lingfei wanted to see him, Yu Haoran could not help but frown. However, thinking of something that happened in his previous life, he could only wave his sleeves helplessly and use Yuan Li to open the door. Your Highness, please come in. Third brother, let's go. Qin Lingfei turned to greet Qin Tianyi. Her handsome face under the silk veil was filled with curiosity as she walked into the Qingyao Pavilion. Raising his head to look at his sister, Qin Tianyi took a deep breath and temporarily suppressed the anger in his heart. Just as he was about to step into the Qingyao Pavilion, the door of the Qingyao Pavilion was closed with a bang. Such an obvious slap in the face not only made the anger in Qin Tianyi's heart erupt, but also made the surrounding people feel a burst of shock. The third prince, Qin Tianyi, was not only the prince that Emperor Qin valued the most, but also a top genius with monstrous potential. He was not even 30 years old, but he was already an expert in the martial saint realm. Facing such a noble and powerful genius, what kind of confidence did Yu Haoran have that he dared to offend him like this? Yu Haoran, could it be that you want to declare war on me, Qin Tianyi? Intolerable, no need to endure. Qin Tianyi believed that the reason why his father favored Yu Haoran and even gave him the imperial decree that could condense the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and withstand the full blow of a 9th level martial saint was because of the 5 lives profound gate pill that he had just refined. If he killed Yu Haoran and obtained the 5 lives profound gate pill, he would only be scolded by his father in the end, and it would not have any effect on him. However, if he did not vent the anger in his heart today, it would eventually form a knot in his heart, and it would definitely affect his future cultivation. Therefore, Qin Tianyi temporarily abandoned all considerations and planned to kill Yu Haoran. Seeing that Qin Tianyi was planning to kill Yu Haoran at all costs, Meng Sheng, who had just made a decision in his heart, immediately stood behind Qin Tianyi, showing his attitude of advancing and retreating with him. In this regard, Qin Tianyi nodded gratefully to Meng Sheng. Declaration of war. Indicating that Qin Lingfei was sitting on the stone chair, Yu Haoran mocked with a disdainful expression. Qin Tianyi, do you have the qualifications to declare war on me? Huh? Hearing Yu Haoran's extremely arrogant question, Qin Tianyi couldn't help but laugh wildly. Yu Haoran, in addition to the identity of the alchemy grandmaster, what qualifications do you have to compare with this highness? You actually said that this highness is not qualified to declare war on you. Qin Tianyi, you are right. In addition to the identity of the alchemy grandmaster, I, Yu Haoran, really have nothing to compare with you. But with the identity of the alchemy grandmaster, I can make you lose everything, believe it or not. In the face of Qin Tiany's contempt, Yu Haoran was not angry at all, but the counterattack made him stand there stupidly. Qin Tiany, you led everyone to besiege Qingyao Pavilion, nothing more than wanting to interrupt my alchemy, so you must have known in advance the heaven-defying effect of the 5 lives profound gate pill on the peak of the 9th level martial saint. You say, when I go to the Emperor later, the only request I made to the Emperor in exchange for the 5 lives profound gate pill is to cancel your qualifications as the successor. Do you think the Emperor will agree? Chapter 585. Qingyuan Guild Hall, Qingyao Pavilion. So that's how it is. Hearing Yu Haoran's counterattack, Qin Tiany finally knew why he dared to look down on him so much and why he dared to say that he was not qualified to declare war with him. The reason was that he could rely on the 5 lives profound gate pill, which had a 30% to 50% chance of breaking through to the martial saint realm to affect his future and fate. And he, who was born in a royal family, was too clear about the fickleness between father and brother. He was worried that his father would agree to Yu Haoran's conditions in order to obtain the 5 lives profound gate pill. Unless he could immediately kill Yu Haoran and seize the 5 lives profound gate pill in the first place, and then personally give it to his father, the outcome might really be like what he said, and he would lose everything. However, when he thought of his 2 consecutive attacks using the power of law, they were easily resolved by Yu Haoran. Moreover, Elder Feng, who had reached the 7th level of the martial saint realm, would not help him kill Yu Haoran, which put Qin Tiany in a dilemma. Grandmaster Yu, my 3rd elder brother, is too arrogant because of his family background. However, he is not a bad person at heart. Hearing Yu Haoran and Qin Tiany's sarcasm and threats, Qin Lingfei felt helpless and had to plead for her 3rd brother. After all, among the many brothers and sisters in the royal family, only her 3rd brother had been taking care of her, caring for her, and doting on her. She couldn't watch her 3rd brother lose the goal of his life. So, Ling Fei, I beg you, can you forgive him and not use the 5 lives profound gate pill to deprive him of everything that originally belonged to him? Your Highness, for your sake, I cannot pursue Qin Tiany's malicious intention to destroy the 5 lives profound gate pill, and I can also temporarily forgive him for his offense towards me just now. But since he destroyed my beast pet, the black bear's palms. At this point, Yu Haoran's gaze turned to the black bear standing in the corner, who was recovering from his injuries with the help of the pill. Your Royal Highness, Qin Tiany and I will never reconcile. The only thing I can promise you now is that I will not use the 5 lives mysterious gate pill to abolish his qualifications to inherit the throne in the future. But I want him to leave the Qingyao Pavilion immediately, right now. Don't let him appear in my sight. Qin Lingfei also noticed that He Xiong had lost his paws. She immediately understood why Yu Haoran was so hostile towards her 3rd brother. Although she wanted to resolve the grudge between the 2 of them, when she saw Yu Haoran's gloomy expression, she was smart enough to know that if she tried to persuade him too much, Yu Haoran might loathe her. Therefore, she could only raise her head and shout towards the outside of Qingyao Pavilion. 3rd brother, you should return to the palace first. I will think of a way to resolve the grudge between you and Grandmaster Yu. Your Highness, if you do not wish to anger His Majesty and be punished by the Imperial Clan Court, it would be best for your Highness to listen to the princess's advice and leave the Qingyao Pavilion now. Old Feng, who had been guarding Qin Tiany since he was a child, did not want to see him offend Yu Haoran and eventually lose the qualifications to attack the throne in the future, so he hurriedly came forward to persuade him. Yu Haoran, today's humiliation, I, Qin Tiany, will remember it for a lifetime. Qin Lingfei and Old Feng's persuasion made Qin Tiany finally decide to temporarily retreat. But thinking that he had never been so humiliated since he was a child, even before leaving, he did not forget to threaten to win back a little face for himself. Qin Tiany, since the day He Xiong decided to follow me, not to mention having his paws destroyed, Even a single hair has not been lost. The harm you gave He Xiong, I will definitely repay you tenfold or 100-fold in the future. Yu Haoran, who was controlling Qin Tiany's life and death, could not bear his threat in vain. He immediately took advantage of He Xiong's injury and then returned the threat in an obviously humiliating way. Qin Tiany, who had already suppressed his anger and planned to temporarily retreat, heard Yu Haoran compare him to a livestock. His anger instantly broke through the suppression, and he planned to rush into Qingya Pavilion and argue with Yu Haoran. Fortunately, Old Feng used his powerful strength to forcefully suppress Qin Tiany's impulse and forcefully took him away from Qingyuan Guildhall. Looking at Qin Tiany, who was brimming with murderous intent and looked as if she would not give up until she killed Yu Haoran, being dragged away by Elder Feng from Qingyuan Guildhall, Meng Sheng, who had the same surname as him, was suddenly stunned. Meng Sheng, get back to the family immediately and wait for the patriarch to deal with you. Seeing Meng Sheng, who was stunned like an idiot, Meng Yun, who felt ashamed, could not stand it anymore. Ignoring the difference in status between a direct descendant and a side descendant, Meng Yun directly scolded with a stern expression. Meng Sheng, who was in a daze, also temporarily forgot the difference in status between him and Meng Yun. Like an idiot, he turned around and left Qingya Pavilion and Qingyuan Guildhall. Master Yu, as far as I know, whether it is a crafting method cultivator or a pill Dao cultivator, those who can reach the Grandmaster realm are generally very broad-minded and do not care about trifles. Just before leaving, in order to save a trace of face, Yu Haoran did not care about his identity as a pill Dao Grandmaster and humiliated him like a rogue. Qin Lingfei felt helpless and could not help but complain. But what about you, Master Yu? Princess, Your Highness, whether it is now or in the future, I, Yu Haoran, will always be this narrow-minded and vengeful character, and I do not intend to change this character. In the face of Qin Lingfei's complaints, Yu Haoran did not show a trace of shame. Moreover, he deliberately emphasized his character that was hated by others. His purpose was to not have too much to do with Qin Lingfei, because according to the normal trajectory, after Gao Wanping merged with Ouyang Haoyu and became the rising star of the great Emperor Qin Kingdom, the one who was finally betrothed to by the Emperor Qin was the princess called Ling Fei in front of him. And from the moment he learned that Gao Wanping planned to use grafting magic to replace Ouyang Haoyu, Yu Haoran knew that the future of the two people was absolutely impossible to coexist peacefully. Therefore, not having too much to do with Qin Lingfei was also to not have to care about her influence when he had a conflict with Gao Wanping in the future. However, what Yu Haoran did not expect was that after hearing him expose his shortcomings and show a rude side, Qin Lingfei not only did not have the slightest disgust, but also had a strong interest in him in her heart. After all, as a princess, Qin Lingfei, who was regarded as the pearl in the palm of the Emperor Qin, was used to flattery since childhood and had seen many polite young talents. Chapter 586. Qingyuan Guildhall, Qingya Pavilion. Brother Xiang, I will be going to the palace later to meet Emperor Qin. It is very likely that I will use the opportunity of exchanging the 5 Lives Mystery Gate Elixir to discuss matters regarding the Qin Alliance meeting in advance. Yu Haoran did not detect the change in Qin Lingfei's attitude as he turned his head to speak to Xiang Wenxuan. If everything goes smoothly, I may leave Xianyang City the day after tomorrow and return directly to the 100 Qi Gate. So, I may need your help to refine the antidote elixir so that it can cure all the people who have been poisoned by the beautiful snake. No problem. Xiang Wenxuan nodded readily in response to Yu Haoran's request. Immediately after, his expression changed and he asked anxiously, Brother Yu, what about the alchemy master's inheritance? Brother Xiang, to be honest, I really cannot give you an accurate answer now. The only thing I can promise is that I will definitely make a trip to the Valley of the Medicine Masters in a month's time and have a chat with the Valley Lord and Head Elder. Yu Haoran had long known that Xiang Wenxuan would not easily give up on the idea of accepting the alchemy master's inheritance. He had already made a decision in his heart and decided to delay it for a while. He would wait until his cultivation had broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm and see the results of his secret cultivation before deciding whether to accept the alchemy master's inheritance. All right, I will also be returning to the Valley of the Medicine Masters in 3 days. At that time, I will respectfully await Brother Yu's arrival in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. As long as Yuhaoran was willing to go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Xiang Wenxuan believed that with the peaceful atmosphere of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and its fairyland-like environment, he would definitely yearn for it and ultimately decide to stay in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Uncle Master Gao, Lord Meng, Assistant Pavilion Leader Jiang, High Official Feng, please come in. After making his promise to Xiang Wenxuan, the next step was to refine the antidote elixir as soon as possible. Therefore, Yuhaoran did not continue to waste time and raised his head to shout towards the courtyard of the Qingyao Pavilion. Your Highness, if you don't have anything urgent to deal with, please wait for a while. After Brother Xiang and I have finished refining all the antidotes, I'll have to trouble you to bring me to the palace. There were many formalities in the royal family. If one wanted to have an audience with Emperor Qin, they would have to go through layers upon layers of reports and inspections. This was what Yuhaoran was most impatient with. Therefore, he planned to have Princess Ling Fei bring him into the inner city of the Imperial Palace to have an audience with Emperor Qin. Sure, Qin Ling Fei nodded in agreement. Martial Uncle Gao, I'm really sorry for what happened just now. The refining of the 5 Lives mysterious gate pill was too important, causing Martial Nephew to take a lot of risks. Seeing Gao Wanping enter the courtyard, Yuhaoran hurriedly apologized. Although there was a possibility that they would become enemies in the future due to the grafting of demonic arts, Yuhaoran didn't want to have too intense a conflict with him before the two sides truly fell out. He didn't want to affect the development of Qingyun's faction in the 100 Qi Gate. It's okay. Martial Uncle was also a little impulsive at that time. To be able to refine a peerless sacred pill that could trigger a lightning tribulation and attract experts at the peak of the 9th level of the martial saint realm to fight for it. The alchemy cultivation that Yuhaoran had just displayed made Gao Wanping unable to be angry, even if he wanted to. He even had to think of ways to curry favor with Yuhaoran. After all, the higher one's cultivation, the stronger one's strength, the more top-grade pills one would need. If he could gain the friendship of a peak alchemy grandmaster, at least before his cultivation broke through the peak of the 9th level of the martial saint realm, Yuhaoran's role would be quite important. Lord Meng, he nodded at Meng Yun. Grandmaster Yu is too polite. Now was different from the past. Facing Yuhaoran's initiative to greet him, Meng Yun didn't dare to be arrogant at all and hurriedly responded politely. Deputy Pavilion Master Jiang, Elder Feng, have you brought the things? Looking at Jiang Yin and Feng Yun, Yuhaoran directly asked. Grandmaster Yu, I brought them all. Taking out a storage ring and a package, Feng Yun respectfully presented them in front of Yuhaoran. After receiving the storage ring and package, Yuhaoran slightly scanned them with his spiritual sense. Knowing that Feng Yun didn't lack anything, he nodded with satisfaction and said, Elder Feng, I'll immediately start refining pills with Grandmaster Xiang and try to refine the antidote pill for you in the shortest time possible. Using his spiritual sense to transfer the spiritual herbs and the infant soul flower from the storage ring to Victor, then returning the storage ring to Feng Yun and throwing the package to Wu Jingjun, Yuhaoran promised. Senior Apprentice Uncle Gao, please greet Lord Meng first. After instructing Gao Wanping, Yuhaoran once again took out the pill furnace left by the pill, Saint Miao Zun, and a portion of the spiritual herbs that had just been transferred to Victor and discussed with Xiang Wenxuan. Brother Xiang, just like when refining the 5 Lives Profound Gate pill, you'll be in charge of melting and refining the spiritual herbs, and I'll be in charge of condensing and forming the pill. All right. Xiang Wenxuan nodded in agreement. Fouling, I'll have to trouble you. He had to ask Xiang Wenxuan to help him refine the spiritual herbs, but he couldn't let him discover the true amount of spiritual herbs needed to refine the antidote pill, and he couldn't let him secretly infuse the poison that could counter the opponent. This required Thaling to use his powerful spiritual sense to help him remove a portion of the useless spiritual liquid the moment he condensed the pill. At the same time, he also had to infuse the poisonous spiritual liquid into the pill. Therefore, in the process of refining the antidote pill, the most difficult part was actually Thaling. Don't worry, Thaling didn't seem to mind at all. Let's begin. He gestured to Xiang Wenxuan. One of them was melting and refining the spiritual herbs, while the other was condensing and forming the pill. With the division of labor and the ability to maintain their energy, the time needed to refine a batch of antidote pills had been shortened to less than 20 minutes. Moreover, as the two of them became more and more familiar with each other, the time needed to refine a batch of antidote pills was finally fixed at around 15 minutes. After spending almost 7 hours in refining 20 batches of antidote pills and 180 antidote pills, Yu Haoran and Xiang Wenxuan finally stopped their crazy refining. After handing over the agreed amount of pills to the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, Yu Haoran gave all the remaining antidote pills to Wu Jingjun. Then, he gave him a list of spiritual herbs that could be used to improve one's soul and cultivation. He told him to use the antidote pills to trade with the people guarding outside the Qingyao Pavilion. After that, Yu Haoran called out to Qin Lingfei, and they quietly left the Qingyuan Guild Hall, heading straight for the palace in the inner city. The refining of the 5 Lives Mysterious Gate pill and 20 batches of antidote pills took about 15 to 16 hours. They started refining the Mysterious Gate pill in the early morning, so when they left the Qingyuan Guild Hall, they were already in a deep state. Although there were martial saint experts secretly protecting Qin Lingfei, a man and a woman strolling alone on the quiet street made Qin Lingfei, who had never been alone with a strange man, feel a little embarrassed. Chapter 587. In Xianyang City, his rude personality triggered Qin Lingfei's urge to peek at him. The seriousness he revealed when he was immersed in refining pills made her feel incomparable admiration for him. She walked slowly on the quiet street, but kept her eyes on him in a refined and courteous manner. In less than 10 hours, Yu Haoran's different performance had already quietly opened the door to the girl's first awakening of love. However, the girl's reserve made Qin Lingfei very embarrassed to take the initiative to talk to Yu Haoran. Therefore, the two of them could only bury their heads and hurry on their way. The Qingyuan Guild Hall was not far from the Imperial Palace in the inner city. In less than half an hour, the two of them successfully arrived in front of the Imperial Palace. Because Princess Lingfei was leading the way, the guards guarding the city gate only did a simple inspection. Then, under their gaze full of special meaning, they watched Qin Lingfei and Yu Haoran enter the Imperial Palace. After entering the Imperial Palace, Qin Lingfei suppressed the shyness in her heart and reminded Yu Haoran, "Brother Yu, since you have obtained Imperial Father's permission to enter the Imperial Palace, then there is no need to go through the layers of inspection. You could just follow me." Originally, according to the normal procedure, there were many requirements for people like Yu Haoran who had been summoned by the Imperial Edict to enter the Imperial Palace. First, you had to prepare to meet the Emperor in advance within the specified time. Yu Haoran had already violated this point and could be considered to have committed the crime of deceiving the Emperor. Second, even if you arrived at the Imperial Palace in advance, you still needed to see if the Emperor had the time and mood to meet you. Third, even if the Emperor was allowed to meet you, he had to go through at least 3 layers of inspection and interrogation. The path that Qin Lingfei led directly avoided the latter 2 points. Basically, Yu Haoran had committed all the crimes of deceiving the Emperor. Of course, Yu Haoran, who had the 5 Lives Mystical Gate elixir in his hand, did not care at all about whether or not he had committed the crime of deceiving the monarch. In the end, he followed behind Qin Lingfei and arrived in front of a majestic hall. "Brother Yu, this is my Imperial Father's study. Usually, when there is no morning court, Imperial Father will stay in the study to deal with court affairs," Qin Lingfei said in a low voice as she pointed at the majestic hall. As for the martial saint expert who was secretly protecting Qin Lingfei, The number of times she sighed and shook her head along the way was much more than the number of times she had sighed and shook her head in her 100 years of cultivation. While Qin Lingfei's voice was already very soft, the person in charge of taking care of Emperor Qin's internal affairs was not only a martial saint, but also a peak expert who had reached the early 9th grade of the martial saint realm. In fact, when Yu Haoran had just approached the hall, the internal affairs director had already sensed a strange aura and directly scanned over with his divine sense. He also happened to hear Qin Lingfei's soft reminder just now. Not only did she secretly bring a strange man into the imperial palace, but she also directly exposed Emperor Qin's location. If this person was not Emperor Qin's most beloved and pure-hearted Princess Ling Fei, even if he was the emperor's son, the internal affairs director would have already sternly reprimanded him. This old servant greets Your Highness. Afraid that the pure-hearted Princess Ling Fei would expose more secrets about Emperor Qin, the internal affairs director hurriedly walked out of the hall. Director Jiang. Seeing the internal affairs director suddenly walk out of the hall, Qin Lingfei was like a child who had done something wrong. She was frightened and called out with a panicked expression. 100 Qi Gates Deputy Gate Master Yu Haoran greets, Sir Director. Cupping his fists, Yu Haoran calmly called out. Peak Alchemy Grandmaster Yu Haoran. After hearing the familiar name, Director Jiang immediately thought of Emperor Wan's instructions and hurriedly asked. That's me. Nodding, Yu Haoran confirmed. Grandmaster Yu, you secretly sneaked into the imperial palace with the help of Her Highness, which is against the Qin state's etiquette. According to the law, you should be beheaded. After receiving Yu Haoran's confirmation, anger rose in Director Jiang's heart. How long has it been? After careful calculation, it was almost 8 hours. Since learning that Emperor Wan had summoned Yu Haoran for an audience, Director Jiang began to arrange the time for Yu Haoran's audience. For this reason, he pushed back the schedule of 7 court ministers to meet the emperor to discuss state affairs and blocked the 3 harem concubines from taking the initiative to serve him. But the result, 8 hours, nearly 8 hours later, Yu Haoran, who should have met the emperor long ago, arrived late. Moreover, he sneaked into the imperial palace through Princess Ling Fei. How could this not make Director Jiang angry? Director, I have some private matters to deal with, so I was delayed for some time. It's not a big deal. It's not necessary to push me to the Meridian Gate for beheading. Director Jiang's threat may have some deterrence to others, but for Yu Haoran, who was not afraid of anything, it was actually similar to a usual joke. What's more, he and Emperor Qin had not discussed the ownership of the 5 Lives Mysterious Gate pill. How could Emperor Qin push him to the Meridian Gate for beheading? Master Yu, could it be that you think this old man is scaring you? His face darkened, and an imposing aura slowly emitted from Director Jiang's body. Feeling the imposing aura emitted from Director Jiang's body, even as a princess, Qin Lingfei could not help but take a few steps back in fear. All right, Director Jiang, I'm very busy. I don't have time to waste with you here. You'd better hurry and report to Emperor Qin that I, Yu Haoran, have arrived. Unfortunately, in the face of Director Jiang's imposing aura, Yu Haoran did not seem to notice at all. He shook his head and urged in a very impatient tone. Rudeness, seriousness in alchemy, and politeness. These were the 3 characteristics that moved Qin Lingfei. At this time, with the addition of the advantage of being calm in the face of danger and ignoring the strong enemy, Qin Lingfei's gaze towards Yu Haoran was already a little blurred. How dare you? Yu Haoran, do you know where you are? Do you know who you are talking to? Yu Haoran's nonchalant attitude completely infuriated Director Jiang. His originally imposing manner was replaced by a murderous aura that was so thick that it had materialized. His voice was filled with suppressed anger that was about to explode. All right, Director Jiang, how old are you? Why are you still so angry? In the face of the murderous aura that was completely substantial, Yu Haoran's heart palpitated a little, but he still maintained an indifferent expression on his face. Yu Haoran's rogue action of ignoring the threat completely stunned Director Jiang. as Howard had just said before he really handed over the 5 lives mysterious gate elixir. Even if Emperor Qin wanted to kill him, he had to be afraid of whether or not he would destroy the elixir. Director Jiang, to tell you the truth, I'm really busy. Could you please hurry and report it now? Taking advantage of Director Jiang's confusion, Howard struck while the iron was hot and urged him, "Wait here." Whether it was to push Howard into the Meridian Gate to be beheaded or to be put on death row to await trial, it needed the emperor to personally decide. Chapter 588. Xinzong City, Imperial Palace. Brother you're really amazing. You can actually make Director Jiang unable to do anything to you. After Director Jiang entered the main hall, Qin Lingfei walked in front of Ran and sighed with admiration. Your Highness, you must not casually provoke Director Jiang in the future. I can feel the terror of this person, as well as the importance your father places on him. Moreover, I can ignore his threat because I have means in my hands that he doesn't dare to deal with. You don't. Howard could feel the excitement in Qin Lingfei's admiring tone. He was afraid that she would provoke Director Jiang and hurriedly advised her. Rolling her eyes at Howard, Qin Lingfei said speechlessly, Brother this is the Imperial Palace and I'm the princess. Don't I understand Director Jiang better than you? In this regard, Howard could only shrug his shoulders and did not continue to persuade her. Not long after, Director Jiang, who had entered the main hall, walked out again and expressionlessly instructed Howard. The Emperor summons you for an audience. After instructing, Director Jiang directly turned around and entered the main hall to show his dislike for Howard. Your Highness, you should go back first. Turning his head to remind Qin Lingfei, Howard hurriedly followed behind Director Jiang and entered the main hall. Your Highness, this person is not suitable for you. After watching Howard enter the main hall, Qin Lingfei's eyes revealed a strong reluctance. However, at this moment, a middle-aged woman dressed in light gray clothes appeared beside Qin Lingfei and spoke with a disdainful expression. And why? Looking at the middle-aged woman in confusion, Qin Lingfei asked, The path of alchemy will always be a small path. If you want to achieve great things on this continent, the path of martial arts is the right path. The middle-aged woman called Aunt Hu explained. Auntie Hu, how do you know that Howard's achievements in the path of martial cultivation aren't good enough? Qin Lingfei questioned, unconvinced. One can't do 2 things at once. The middle-aged woman replied. Hearing Aunt Hu's response, Qin Lingfei was speechless. Your Highness, quickly forget about him to avoid the sorrow in the future. The middle-aged woman left a warning and disappeared from Qin Lingfei's side. Anywho, how can I forget? Qin Lingfei muttered to herself as she faced the empty space beside her. Following behind Chief Steward Jiang, they passed through 2 main doors and 5 secret doors. Finally, they entered a room that emitted a strong, scholarly scent. Raising his head, Howard glanced at the neatly arranged books on the bookshelves around him. Looking at the divine dragon carved on the pillars supporting the room, Howard immediately felt his exhausted soul being cleansed by the rich fragrance of books in the room. His rudeness outside the main hall was one thing. Anyway, there were no outsiders present. But now, facing the ruler of the entire great Emperor Qin's kingdom, Howard's continued rudeness made Chief Steward Jiang really angry. Originally, he wanted to use his divine thoughts to teach Howard a lesson, but the middle-aged man sitting on the dragon throne shook his head and stopped him. Waving his hand, the middle-aged man motioned for Chief Steward Jiang to leave first. Phew! After being cleansed by the scholarly scent for nearly 3 minutes, Howard, who was refreshed, took a deep breath and then turned his head to look at the middle-aged man sitting on the dragon throne with a smile on his face. Looking at the middle-aged man sitting on the dragon throne, Howard felt that something was wrong. Although the person sitting on the dragon throne gave people the feeling of a middle-aged man, if you carefully felt it, you would find that this person's vigorous vitality made him look like a young man in his 20s. Howard greets Emperor Qin. Needless to say, The person who could sit on the exclusive dragon throne must be the ruler of the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, Emperor Qin. Therefore, Yu Haoran cupped his fists and saluted. Yu Haoran, this is my study room. Countless formations and mechanisms have been set up. I'm also an expert at the peak of the 9th level martial saint. I'm absolutely confident that I can capture and kill you before you destroy the 5 lives profound gate pill. Don't you feel a trace of nervousness and fear when facing me? Facing Yu Haoran's salute, Emperor Qin was not angry. He only said with a smile on his face. But the words that came out of his mouth made Yu Haoran's heart shocked. Fortunately, his strong state of mind did not let him show the slightest nervousness or fear. He also replied with a smile on his face. Replying to your majesty, I neither feel nervous nor afraid. Because at the moment when the 5 lives profound gate pill passed through the lightning tribulation, I had already used a special pill controlling secret technique to control the pill. Even if your majesty's speed is fast, can it be faster than my thoughts? That's right. Facing Yu Haoran's reply, Emperor Qin was not angry at all. He still smiled and said, what if the power of law that I have comprehended can control your mind? Ha! Facing the threat of Emperor Qin's plan to use the power of law, Yu Haoran could not help but chuckle. Then he walked straight to a chair opposite Emperor Qin and leaned back. He said to Emperor Qin, Your Majesty, you don't know. The peak of the Grandmaster realm is not my strongest method. The true reason why I dare to come to see you alone is because I can ignore any mental state cultivation that can confuse my mind. Moreover, even if your majesty is a peerless expert in the martial venerable realm, you want to use the power of law to control my mind. At this point, Yu Haoran stretched out a finger and shook it a few times at Emperor Qin as he replied with a smile. Ha! Then I can only give you 2 words, no way. Yu Haoran's counterattack just now was not a bluff. It was the truth. Because he had retained the memories and insights of his previous life, his will and state of mind were very strong. Moreover, the soul in his sea of consciousness had already recovered the thalling of a peak martial venerable. It was even more impossible for him to watch his thoughts be controlled by someone else and not care about it. Therefore, Emperor Qin's method of using the power of law to control his mind was not a threat to Yu Haoran at all. You have guts and wisdom. I don't know if a hidden dragon like you that the 100 Qi Gate has carefully cultivated is a blessing or a curse. Yu Haoran's overly arrogant rebuttal made Emperor Qin's tone clearly reveal a trace of displeasure, although he still had a smile on his face. Therefore, the conclusion he gave was obviously a trace of humiliation. Yu Haoran did not refute Emperor Qin's conclusion just now. He just suddenly fell silent. Seeing that Yu Haoran had suddenly become silent, Emperor Qin asked in confusion, Yu Haoran, why aren't you saying anything? After all, from the information he had learned in advance in the conversation just now, he knew that Yu Haoran was not the kind of person who could endure humiliation. Chapter 590. In the study of the Imperial Palace in Xianyang City. Your Majesty, it's not that I don't want to talk, but the conclusion you gave just now is indeed correct. Because even I don't know whether following my heart is a blessing or a curse for the 100 Feet sect, whose strength has been reduced. Yu Haoran's honest answer made Emperor Qin's eyes light up. The trace of displeasure that had just emerged in his heart also dissipated. However, when he saw that Yu Haoran's mood was a little low, he took the initiative to change the topic. Yu Haoran, about the 5 Lives Mystery Gate Elixir, name a price. Your Majesty, before we discuss the 5 Lives Mystery Gate Elixir, I have something to ask. Seeing that Emperor Qin was about to get to the point, Yu Haoran hurriedly asked, thinking that the most important thing had not been resolved yet. Speak. Emperor Qin gestured. Perhaps it was because of Yu Haoran's casual personality that made Emperor Qin feel very relaxed. Perhaps it was because Yu Haoran was the only one in the entire study. His originally upright posture was like Yu Haoran's, leisurely leaning on the back of the dragon throne. Your Majesty, why did you suddenly call for the Qin alliance meeting? What is your ultimate goal? Yu Haoran asked. Emperor Qin reached out and knocked on the table. He closed his eyes and pondered for a while, then opened his eyes and spoke. I have been on the throne for 38 years. Although I can't be said to be the emperor of a generation, I could be considered a relatively accomplished emperor. Now, the Emperor Qin kingdom is strong and prosperous. There are no less than 10 million elite soldiers and countless masters of the king realm and emperor realm. It has reached the point where we can expand our territory and conquer the world. The convening of the Qin Alliance meeting is actually to consolidate the resources in advance and eliminate the hidden dangers within the kingdom. This is so that the generals and strategists who are fighting outside can kill the enemy without any distractions and show the might of the kingdom of Qin. What are the specific rules? The Emperor Qin's ambition to expand his territory and conquer the world was not beyond Yu Haoran's expectations. However, if you want to know more about the Emperor Qin's attitude towards the second-rate sects, the 100 Qi Gate and the Qingqing sect, looking straight into Yu Haoran's eyes, Emperor Qin said word by word, surrender, pay tribute, and obey your orders. What are the conditions? Whether it was surrendering, paying tribute, or obeying orders, it could be said that they had lost their autonomy. When faced with such a great sacrifice, what sort of benefits or compensation would the Grand Qin Empire give them? As long as Emperor Qin kingdom. Emperor Qin's reply was domineering. Emperor Qin replied, "That's all." Yu Haoran asked in disbelief, "Isn't that enough?" Emperor Qin's face darkened and a majestic aura of an emperor rushed over. Yu Haoran waved his hand and dispelled Emperor Qin's emperor's aura. He retorted in a rather unhappy tone. "Nonsense, of course it's not enough." As soon as the word nonsense came out of his mouth, Yu Haoran immediately saw Emperor Qin's forehead twitch slightly. He suddenly remembered that the person sitting in front of him was still the emperor of the kingdom of Qin. It didn't matter if his attitude was casual, but he couldn't speak without thinking. Therefore, he hurriedly apologized. "Your Majesty, I made a slip of the tongue in a moment of desperation. Please forgive me." "It's fine." Seeing that Yu Haoran realized his mistake and immediately apologized, Emperor Qin shook his head, indicating that it was fine. "Then what do you think?" "Your Majesty, no matter what, my 100 Qi Gate is still one of the few second-rate sects in the Tianxian continent. With Emperor Qin's current strength and reputation, it's not enough to make the 100 Qi Gate surrender. Moreover, if I had agreed to your request just now, then Yu Haoran, would definitely be mocked by the world and become the eternal sinner of the 100 Qi Gate. Therefore, in my opinion, the 100 Qi Gate and Emperor Qin's kingdom can completely form an alliance, an iron alliance that advances and retreats together. A sect whose strength has been reduced to the point where it can't even suppress its subordinate forces. What qualifications does it have to form an alliance with my Emperor Qin's kingdom?" Emperor Qin sneered with disdain, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "That's right. Many years of internal strife have indeed caused the 100 Qi Gate's strength to be greatly reduced. However, as an old second-rate sect, the foundation of the 100 Qi Gate is not something that outsiders are familiar with." At this point, Yu Haoran stood up, pressed his hands on the table, and leaned forward slightly. His tone was full of confidence. "Now, with me, the disciple of a grandmaster at the pinnacle of the Pill Tao, and having just completed the 100 Qi Gate, it won't be difficult for them to regain their former strength. Therefore, the 100 Qi Gate has the qualifications to form an alliance with Emperor Qin's kingdom, and has the ability to become the staunchest ally of Emperor Qin's kingdom." Looking at Yu Haoran's young face and hearing his domineering and confident declaration, Emperor Qin's eyes gradually lit up. "Yu Haoran, if you want me to accept your conditions, sure." To Yu Haoran's surprise, in the face of his domineering declaration, not only was Emperor Qin not angry, but he also didn't refute it. Instead, he directly nodded and agreed to his proposal. But then, Emperor Qin's tone changed, and he said solemnly, "However, you need to agree to 3 of my conditions." "Your Majesty, please speak," Yu Haoran said nervously as he leaned back in his chair. First, after the Emperor Qin's kingdom and the 100 Gate form an alliance, the Emperor Qin's kingdom will lead the entire alliance. No problem. Yu Haoran didn't even consider Emperor Qin's first request, and he directly nodded in agreement. After all, even if the 100 Gate recovered its previous strength, it would at most be a mid-level second-rate sect. There was a big gap between it and the Emperor Qin's kingdom, which was not inferior to the first-rate sections. It was impossible for it to lead the entire alliance. Therefore, even if Emperor Qin didn't take the initiative to make this request, the Emperor Qin's kingdom would lead the development of the entire alliance in the future. Second, after we form an alliance, there will be one leader and two deputy leaders. One of the deputy leaders will be from the 100 Gate. I want the deputy leader to be Yu Haoran. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about the alliance. In the face of Emperor Qin's second condition, Yu Haoran seemed to be a little embarrassed, because to become the deputy leader, he had to participate in the affairs of the entire alliance. According to his understanding of Emperor Qin in his previous life, in the next 100 years, the Emperor Qin's kingdom would never stop fighting. He was worried that the position of the deputy leader would not only restrict his freedom, but also delay his cultivation. Yu Haoran, don't worry. The deputy leader is just an empty position. Unless it is a matter of great importance to the survival of the alliance, you can do whatever you want. According to the information collected and the brief contact with Yu Haoran just now, Emperor Qin could basically see his character and knew that he was not very keen on power. Chapter 591. Xianyang City, Imperial Palace, Study Room. All right. After receiving Emperor Qin's guarantee, Yu Haoran finally nodded and agreed to the second condition, which was to become the vice leader of the alliance. Yu Haoran, my third condition is... At this point, Emperor Qin's solemn expression was replaced by a loving smile, and his tone revealed a trace of intimacy and gentleness. My third condition is that you must marry my beloved daughter, the gentle and lovely Princess Ling Fei. What? Yu Haoran, who had been leaning against the back of his chair, stood up in shock after hearing Emperor Qin's third condition. He looked at Emperor Qin in disbelief. My third condition is for you to become my son-in-law. This way, we will be a family in the future, and the alliance between Emperor Qin's empire and the 100 Gate will truly become the Iron Alliance you mentioned just now. Yu Haoran's loss of composure did not surprise Emperor Qin at all, and he continued to explain gently. After receiving further explanation and confirmation from Emperor Qin, Yu Haoran sat back on his throne with a wry smile on his face. If the proposal to marry Princess Ling Fei had not been brought up by Emperor Qin, he would not have been able to marry Princess Ling Fei. According to Yu Haoran's personality, if the woman he was going to marry was not Princess Ling Fei, who had just helped him, he would have already left in a huff. However, this matter concerned the alliance between the sects and the empire, so he could not act according to his own temperament. He wanted to try and see if he could change Emperor Qin's mind. Why? Yu Haoran raised his head to look at Emperor Qin and asked, Yu Haoran, although you and us have just met, us believe that you are a person who values friendship and righteousness. At this point, Emperor Qin got up and left the desk. He then walked to the window and looked at the dazzling imperial palace in front of him. His tone was full of tenderness. Ling Fei, our 9th daughter, was born with 7-colored auspicious clouds and a 7-colored celestial mushroom. She was still the darling of heaven and earth. Fei's mother was us favorite and most trusted woman. However, when Fei was 3 years old, I was secretly attacked by someone. It was Fei's mother who ignored the danger and blocked the sneak attack that was powerful enough to kill the spirit of a sage expert for me. In the end, she died in front of me. In my life, including the children who died prematurely, I have a total of 36 children. However, the only one that I can truly dote on and worry about is Fei. At this point, Fei's father's affectionate look at Yu Haoran's face was full of fatherly love. Yu Haoran, the moment Fei's mother died before us secretly swore that us would find a man for Fei who could make her happy. Now, us believe that us is worthy of Fei Er's life. Your Majesty, although I have never seen Her Royal Highness' true appearance, I can see that Princess Ling Fei is gentle and well-mannered on the way to the Imperial Palace. She is definitely a good girl who could be a good wife and mother. Emperor Qin's sincere expression just now made Yu Haoran even more determined to reject the marriage. Because of He Ruyu's betrayal, the door of love that he had just opened was completely sealed. Whether it was now or in the future, Yu Haoran didn't want to touch the door of love. Since Yu Haoran wouldn't open the door of his own feelings to any woman, then in the face of the gentle and lovely Princess Ling Fei, Yu Haoran was even more unlikely to hurt her. What's more, according to the normal trajectory of historical development, the person who is truly worthy of Princess Ling Fei's lifelong commitment should be Gao Wanping, who used grafting magic to fuse with Ouyang Haoyu. But Junior is not suitable for Her Royal Highness, so His Majesty, please take back the condition just now. Yu Haoran, there is no such thing as suitability between men and women, only adaptation. Hearing Yu Haoran's refusal, Emperor Qin's loving expression instantly turned gloomy, and he couldn't help but reprimand Yu Haoran in a stern voice. I believe that my daughter can adapt to you. Don't you have the confidence to adapt to my daughter? Your Majesty, since you think so highly of Junior, then I won't hide it from you. Seeing that Emperor Qin was really angry, Yu Haoran was worried that it would affect the alliance between the 100 Qi Gate and the Emperor Qin's kingdom, so he hurriedly explained. The reason why Junior refused to marry Her Royal Highness is mainly because I have just been betrayed by my feelings, and I don't want to touch feelings for the time being, so as not to affect my state of mind and delay my future cultivation. What's the matter? Emperor Qin's gloomy face eased a little, and he asked. It's like this. Although it was a very shameful thing to be dumped by a woman, Yu Haoran felt that it was worth it to make Emperor Qin take back the condition just now and eliminate the anger in his heart. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Emperor Qin couldn't help but sneer sarcastically. What a blind woman! Perhaps it was because Yu Haoran's performance in alchemy was so outstanding that many people subconsciously ignored his amazing talent in martial arts. According to the detailed investigation of Yu Haoran by the Intelligence Department, Emperor Qin knew that Yu Haoran was born in an ordinary family in a remote town. Because of his parents' accidental death, he was oppressed for a year of slavery when he came of age. It had been less than a year since he started to practice martial arts. In less than a year, his cultivation had directly broken through to the peak of the 9th level of the martial master realm. This kind of amazing progress in martial arts was not inferior to the top disciples of the top sections. Moreover, according to the information obtained from the 100 Qi Gate, Yu Haoran was able to master the secret method of transforming into a strange beast at the martial warrior realm. This showed that he was a favored child with heaven-defying luck, and also a person with great perseverance. Moreover, with the secret method of transforming into a strange beast, he barged into the law enforcement peak and avenged his senior brother Yu. He killed the elders of the subordinate forces and restored the prestige of the 100 Qi Gate. He forced the Gate Master Zhao Ji to take the initiative to betray the sect and use this to suppress the internal strife of the sect. In less than a year, Yu Haoran's various performances showed that he was a person who valued relationships, was brave, and had unlimited potential in the future. Instead of holding such an outstanding man tightly in her hands, she betrayed Yu Haoran for someone who she didn't know was a man or a woman. If He Ryu wasn't blind, then what was? However, even though he felt disdain for He Ryu's blindness, he still had to think of a way to make Yu Haoran accept his proposal to marry Ling Fei. That was what gave him the most headache. Yu Haoran, whether it's you or Fei you're both still very young. Getting married too early will be detrimental to your future cultivation. After thinking about it, Emperor Qin decided to use the marriage contract to trap Yu Haoran first. Chapter 592. Xianyang City, Imperial Palace, Study Room. How about this? Emperor Qin, who had returned to his throne, regained his benevolence and gentleness in his tone, but his attitude was unquestionable. "You, Howren, I will first grant you an engagement and then give you a period of time to get to know each other. After a period of time, if you and Fair feel that you are not suitable for each other, then I will take the initiative to cancel the engagement. If you and Fair are in love, then I will hold a grand wedding for you. How about it?" To be able to take a step back was already very rare for Emperor Qin, and it was enough to show how much he doted on Ling Fei. At the same time, it also showed how much he valued him. Although he could guess Emperor Qin's real intention for taking a step back, Yu Haoran knew that if he continued to refuse, he would definitely be angry with Emperor Qin. At that time, not to mention the alliance between the 100 Qi Gate and Emperor Qin's kingdom. Whether he could walk out of this study room alive would be a big question mark. Therefore, Yu Haoran could only nod with a bitter smile and agree. "Everything will be decided by your majesty." "Good." Seeing that Yu Haoran had agreed to his request, Emperor Qin, who was overjoyed, couldn't help but cheer happily. At the same time, he set the date of the engagement on the spot. "If that's the case, then I will announce it to the world tomorrow. On the 2nd of February, the day the dragon raises its head, I will hold a grand engagement ceremony for you and Fei and at the same time announce the alliance between Emperor Qin's kingdom and the 100 Qi Gate. Everything will be decided by your majesty." Yu Haoran's expression was calm, but his tone was a little helpless as he replied. He was helpless because from a moment he agreed to the engagement, the future development of the entire Tianxian continent was almost completely disrupted. Originally, the 100 Qi Gate was supposed to be destroyed 3 years later. However, with the protection of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, there was a very high chance that they would not be destroyed. Princess Ling Fei, who was supposed to be Gao Wanping's wife, was now his woman in name. Originally, it was necessary to integrate the potential dangers and hidden dangers around the emperor's borders. The war would only begin a few years later. However, on the 2nd of February next year, when the alliance was officially formed, the Iron Cavalry of the great Emperor Qin Empire would begin the bloody journey of the war. Fortunately, Faoling had reminded him early on that from the moment he was reborn, the future of the Tianxian land had already changed. Therefore, in the face of a completely disrupted future, he could only sigh for a moment. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind that after attending the engagement ceremony next year, he would choose to leave the 100 Qi Gate, leave the Emperor Qin, and go to a more distant place to gain experience. First of all, in a more distant place, the future development trajectory would not be disrupted by his various actions after his rebirth. Some opportunities were still waiting for him. Second, he intended to let time dilute the impact of the engagement. Let the distance and estrangement change the inner thoughts of the Emperor Qin and Qin Ling Fei, and finally take the initiative to cancel the engagement. Your Majesty, this is the 5 Lives Profound Gate Pill. Consider it a meeting gift from me. The Qin Emperor had agreed to Yu Haoran's suggestion of forming an alliance and marrying his beloved daughter to Yu Haoran. The Qin Emperor's support made Yu Haoran embarrassed to use the 5 Lives Profound Gate elixir to make a deal. He could only give it to the Qin Emperor as a gift. In this regard, Emperor Qin took the pill bottle happily and also took off a jade pendant hanging on his waist. The front of the jade pendant was engraved with a 5-clawed golden dragon, and the back of the jade pendant was engraved as if the Emperor himself was here. This jade pendant is still my favorite. It can not only withstand 3 full-strength attacks of a peak 9th level martial saint, but also has the power to kill first and report later. Your Majesty, should I kneel down and thank the Lord for his kindness? What Yu Haoran really liked about the jade pendant given by Emperor Qin was not its defensive power that could withstand 3 full-strength attacks of a peak 9th level martial saint, but the power represented by the Emperor himself. Because after leaving the Imperial Palace, he was going to kill people, and the people he was going to kill were not ordinary warriors. They were all influential people in Xianyang City. Originally, he wanted to use the 5 Lives Profound Gate Pill to exchange for a token that could let him leave Xianyang City without any investigation, so that he could sneak attack and kill those people and leave Xianyang City as soon as possible. Now, with this jade pendant, even if his whereabouts were exposed after killing those people, he did not need to worry about the pursuit of the soldiers. Therefore, Yu Haoran, who was in a good mood, could not help but joke with Emperor Qin. Facing Yu Haoran's joke, Emperor Qin, who was also in a good mood, could not help but tease him. "Your Majesty, the Lanling King of Lanling City requests to see you." Facing Emperor Qin's teasing, Yu Haoran wanted to explain, but Steward Zhang's voice suddenly came from the door. "Your Majesty, it seems that the Lanling King is here to send you a gift." Hearing that the Lanling King asked to see him, Yu Haoran immediately thought of the auspicious beast, the single-horned blue ox, and said with a smile, "Oh." Slightly raising his eyebrows, Emperor Qin asked with interest, "You know the reason why the Lanling King wants to see me? When I was rushing to Xianying City, I stayed in Lanling City for a few days and saw with my own eyes the gift that the Lanling King prepared for your Majesty. I also know the painful price that he paid for it," Yu Haoran said with a complicated expression. "Yu Haoran, don't you hate the Lanling King?" He did not care about the gift that the Lanling King prepared, nor did he care about the painful price that the Lanling King had to pay for it. What Emperor Qin really cared about was Yu Haoran's attitude towards the Lanling King. This was because it concerned Yu Haoran's character. It was he Ryu who chose the Lanling King. He did not snatch he Ryu away. Why should I hate him? Yu Haoran replied very generously. However, he was not sure if the complicated feelings in his heart were really as he had said just now. "If that's the case, why don't you accompany me to meet the Lanling King?" At the same time, Emperor Qin felt the changes in Yu Haoran's complicated emotions. In order to further verify Yu Haoran's character, he suggested with a smile. Yu Haoran shrugged and showed an indifferent expression. "Let the Lanling King in." Emperor Qin ordered Director Jiang, who was outside the door. "Yes, Your Majesty." In less than half a minute, Director Jiang led a young man who was wearing a Shura mask and had an extraordinary aura into the study room. Director Jiang could not help but frown when he saw Yu Haoran, who was leaning against the throne in a relaxed manner. However, when he saw that the emperor was not angry at Yu Haoran's casual attitude, he could only suppress the displeasure in his heart and brought the Lanling King to the study table. "Your subordinate, Lan Runji, greets Your Majesty." "Long live Your Majesty! Long live Your Majesty!" Seeing Emperor Qin, who was sitting on the dragon throne, the Lanling King immediately kneeled on one knee and greeted him. Chapter 593. In the study room of the palace in Xianying City, after getting the signal to stand up, Prince Lanling only dared to lift his head to look at Emperor Qin. He then saw Yu Haoran, who had his back facing him. "May I ask if you are Yu Haoran, the deputy gate master of the 100 Qi Gate?" Although he could only see Lin Huang's back, the more he looked at him, the more familiar he felt. Prince Lanling couldn't help but ask. Since Lin Huang had taken the initiative to ask, he had to respond. Therefore, Yu Haoran stood up and greeted him with cupped fists. "Greetings, Prince Lanling, from Yu Haoran. It's really you." Prince Lanling shouted in surprise when he saw Yu Haoran turn around. Ever since Prince Lanling had reached an agreement with the single-horned green ox to find the murderer and return to Lanling City, he had sent people to look for Yu Haoran. Firstly, he wanted to repay Lin Huang for saving his life. Secondly, he wanted to explain to him about He Yuru. Unfortunately, Yu Haoran had left Lanling City in advance. Not only did his plan fall through, but he also had to continue keeping He Yuru by his side. This made him feel rather guilty and depressed. Now that he had finally found Yu Haoran, Prince Lanling wanted to explain everything to him immediately so that he could take He Yuru away from him as soon as possible. However, when he saw Emperor Qin's gloomy face behind the study table, he could only suppress his urge to explain temporarily. Then, he spoke to Emperor Qin respectfully. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. Auspicious sign from the heavens." "What's auspicious sign?" Emperor Qin asked calmly. "Long live Your Majesty. Auspicious sign is the single-horned green ox," Prince Lanling said excitedly. Emperor Qin, who was initially calm, was slightly shocked when he heard the single-horned green ox. He couldn't help but look at Yuhaoran. Facing Emperor Qin's gaze, Yuhaoran shrugged helplessly. After all, he wanted to tell Emperor Qin in advance about the gift that Prince Lanling brought to the audience this time. However, he kept asking about his relationship problems, so he didn't have the time to remind him. Where is the unicorn azure bowl right now? Yuhaoran's helpless expression made Emperor Qin realize that he had lost his composure. He could only withdraw his gaze and ask. The auspicious beast, the single-horned blue ox lion, is currently waiting outside the palace. Speaking of the single-horned green bull, King Lanling couldn't help but glance at Yuhaoran. That was because Ruyu was currently standing beside the unicorn azure ox. Haoran, are you interested in accompanying me to take a look at this auspicious beast? Emperor Qin's interest was piqued when he heard that the single-horned green bull centipede was waiting at the palace gates. After all, after officially forming an alliance with the 100 Qi Gate, Emperor Qin's kingdom would officially start conquering the world. If he could obtain the approval of the auspicious beast, the single-horned green bull centipede, whether it was increasing his reputation or the morale of his soldiers, it would be an unimaginable help. After getting up, Emperor Qin couldn't help but invite Yuhaoran and Princess Ling Fei's marriage contract. He was now considered the closest person to him. All right, Yuhaoran replied helplessly. Originally, when Prince Lanling mentioned the single-horned green bull centipede, he intentionally glanced at Yuhaoran. Yuhaoran knew that Ruyu would definitely be by the single-horned green bull centipede side. According to his wishes, he didn't want to see Ruyu again, let alone have any entanglements with her. However, when he recalled how Emperor Qin had shown disdain for Ruyu when he was talking about his betrayal, he was worried that Emperor Qin, who knew Ruyu's true identity, would do something to hurt her. Therefore, he could only agree to go with them. Steward Jiang, please lead the way. Emperor Qin, who was in a good mood, didn't notice the helplessness in Yuhaoran's reply and instructed Steward Jiang. Steward Jiang completely ignored Yuhaoran and bowed respectfully to Emperor Qin and Prince Lanling as he said, Your Majesty, Prince Lanling, this way please. However, Yuhaoran, who had been thinking about how to face Ruyu, didn't notice Steward Jiang's deliberate disregard just now. Under Steward Jiang's lead, the group arrived outside the palace under the protection of hundreds of martial emperors and martial saints. Although the single-horned blue ox's figure, shape, and aura were very eye-catching, the first thing that Yuhaoran saw was Ruyu, who was standing alone beside the single-horned blue ox. She was wearing the silk veil that he had personally given her. Not bad. It's indeed the auspicious beast, the single-horned blue ox that symbolizes the prosperity of martial arts and the revival of all living things. Emperor Qin couldn't help but praise when he saw the strange beast that was 90% similar to the blue ox, but had an additional white horn on its forehead. Your Majesty, let me introduce it to you. Prince Lanling took a few steps forward and said respectfully, No need. Emperor Qin shook his head and waved his hand, indicating that the group didn't need to follow him. Then, he walked towards the single-horned blue ox alone. Brother Yu, I would like to explain to you. While Emperor Qin was talking to the single-horned blue ox alone, Prince Lanling walked to Yuhaoran and whispered to him. However, Yuhaoran shook his head and said, Prince Lanling, since it has happened, what we need to do is to accept it. At this point, Yuhaoran turned his head and looked directly at the pair of eyes under the azure mask. His tone was solemn as he warned. Prince Lanling, Ruyu's background is very pitiful. She has suffered a lot and suffered a lot. It's not something that a noble with a superior background like you can imagine. So, I hope you can take good care of Ruyu. Don't let her suffer a little, don't let her suffer a little, and don't let her be hurt at all. Brother Yu, you've really misunderstood me. Miss Ruyu and I are innocent. Moreover, she and I... Roar. Hearing Yuhaoran's words, Prince Lanling hurriedly explained. However, before he could finish his explanation, he was interrupted by the single-horned blue ox's howl. Looking up, Prince Lanling saw that Emperor Qin was sitting on the single-horned blue ox's back. The single-horned blue ox did not resist, which meant that the single-horned blue ox had officially recognized Emperor Qin. Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor! Seeing that Emperor Qin was recognized by the single-horned blue ox, Manager Jiang, the guards protecting Emperor Qin, and the soldiers guarding the city gate all knelt down and cheered at the same time. Prince Lanling had to stop explaining to Yu Haoran and kneel down with the rest. The howl of the single-horned blue ox and the cheers of the crowd woke Yu up from her thoughts. She couldn't help but look up. Then, she saw that Yu Haoran was the only one who didn't kneel down. She was pleasantly surprised. However, when she saw the coldness in Yu Haoran's eyes as he looked at her, the surprise in her eyes was instantly replaced by regret and sadness. Chapter 594. Xianying City, outside the Imperial Palace. Emperor Qin, who had obtained the recognition of the one-horned blue ox, swept his eyes around in high spirits. He immediately saw Yu Haoran, who was still standing in the crowd and was still unwilling to kneel to him. A trace of helplessness immediately appeared on his face. He didn't know whether this kid would take the initiative to kneel to him on the day of his marriage with his beloved daughter. However, when he noticed that Yu Haoran's gaze had been staring to his left, Emperor Qin couldn't help but turn his head to take a look. He immediately discovered that woman who had also been staring at Yu Haoran. Although her face was covered by a silk veil and her true appearance couldn't be seen, as an expert at the peak of the 9th-level martial saint, Emperor Qin, who had used the power of the limit of the law, could still barely see the peerless appearance under the silk veil. Recalling that Yu Haoran had once mentioned Yu to him, Emperor Qin immediately guessed the origin of this woman. "You must be Yu," Emperor Qin asked with an indifferent expression. "This humble woman, Yu, greets the Emperor. Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor!" Being able to obtain the recognition of the auspicious one-horned blue ox and being willing to let him ride her, the clever Yu immediately guessed who the person in front of her was and hurriedly bowed to salute. Yu's intelligence and calmness just now made Emperor Qin's eyes couldn't help but light up. He finally understood how she had obtained Yu Haoran's initial recognition. His gaze swept across the silk veil, and that peerless appearance that didn't lose to his daughters. A trace of worry welled up in his heart. However, being able to rely on his own strength to bring the Qin kingdom, which could only be regarded as a first-rate country, to the great Emperor Qin kingdom, whose overall strength didn't lose to the top forces, the experienced Emperor Qin immediately thought of a solution. "Do you know that person?" Pointing at Yu Haoran, who was standing in the crowd, Emperor Qin suddenly asked. Yu raised her head and glanced at Yu Haoran as she replied with a bitter expression. "The man I once loved, now I want to ask for forgiveness. If that's the case, then you don't have to beg for his forgiveness." As expected, Emperor Qin couldn't help but sneer when he heard Yu's undisguised regret towards Yu Haoran. Why? Yu didn't understand and questioned him. Facing Yu's question, Emperor Qin laughed, then pointed at Yu Haoran and said loudly, "Because from today onwards, Yu Haoran will be engaged to Emperor Qin's beloved daughter, Princess Ling Fei. From now on, he will be the most honorable son-in-law of Emperor Qin, getting engaged to Ling Fei and Gong Yu, becoming the most honorable prince consort in the Emperor Qin kingdom." Hearing the news announced by the Emperor Qin himself, Yu, Steward Jiang, and the Prince of Lanling, who were still kneeling on the ground, were all shocked. No wonder the Emperor wasn't angry at Yu Haoran's casual attitude just now. It turned out that he had already gained the Emperor's approval. When he thought about how Princess Ling Fei had violated the law and brought Yu Haoran into the palace, he knew that there must have been something between the two of them. Chief Steward Jiang immediately felt regret. He regretted that he had deliberately looked down on Yu Haoran. He didn't know what the Emperor Qin liked, so that he could prepare a congratulatory gift in advance, so that he could apologize to him and ask for his forgiveness. Seeing that the Qin Emperor had actually married his most beloved Princess Ling Fei to Yu Haoran, Prince Lanling knew that there was a misunderstanding between him and Yu Haoran. He was afraid that he would never be able to clear it up in this lifetime unless he was willing to reveal his true identity. However, the consequences of revealing his true identity wasn't something that he could bear. In the end, he could only laugh bitterly. On the other hand, Hiryu looked at Yu Haoran with a pale face. She couldn't believe that Yu Haoran, who had broken up with her for less than 5 days, had actually gotten a new lover. Yu Haoran glared at Emperor Qin with dissatisfaction and nodded at Hiryu. It was a tacit acknowledgement that the news announced by Emperor Qin just now was true. No, this can't be true. After getting Yu Haoran's nod of acknowledgement, Hiryu, who was instantly dealt a blow, turned around and left the palace in disbelief. Steward Jiang, can you arrange for 2 martial emperor experts to protect me secretly? Although her face was covered by a silk veil, Hiryu's devilish figure was irresistible to most men. There were many hedonistic sons in Xianyang City. Yu Haoran was worried that Hiryu, who had lost her mind, would meet with some mishap. He hurriedly asked Steward Jiang for help. In response to Yu Haoran's request, Steward Jiang raised his head and glanced at Emperor Qin. After receiving Emperor Qin's silent approval, he hurriedly instructed a martial sage expert beside him and took out a token. Protect that young lady secretly. Make sure that she doesn't come to any harm. Yes, Steward Jiang. The martial sage expert who received the token acknowledged the order and instantly disappeared from where he stood. Thank you, Steward Jiang. He had only asked him to arrange for 2 martial emperor experts to protect her secretly, but Steward Jiang had directly instructed a martial sage expert to follow her. Yu Haoran was extremely grateful to Steward Jiang for his arrangements. You're too polite, Prince Consort. This is what I should do. In response to Yu Haoran's gratitude, Steward Jiang was also happy that he had thought of this idea at the last minute. However, his tone was rather polite and modest. Brother, congratulations, Prince Consort. Prince Lanling, who had also stood up, congratulated him with a complicated expression. In response, Yu Haoran did not know what to say. Runji, I like the gift that you've given me. What kind of reward do you want? Emperor Qin, who got down from the bull, slowly walked back to the crowd and asked in a rather good mood. Your Majesty, I don't need any reward. Prince Lanling could also see that Emperor Qin was in a good mood. He quickly got rid of the messy thoughts in his heart and said with a bitter expression, I only hope that I can prove my innocence through the single-horned green bull. I definitely don't have any intention of becoming a king. Hearing Prince Lanling's grievance, Emperor Qin immediately stopped smiling and asked with a serious expression, Steward Jiang, what's going on? Among all the kings in the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, anyone could betray and become a king. However, it was impossible for Prince Lanling. Due to his unique gender and background, it was determined that he did not have the qualifications to become a king. I'll go and investigate right now. Steward Jiang, who had an equally gloomy expression, replied immediately. Steward Jiang, you should ask the head inspector. I think he should know what's going on. Yu Haoran could not help but remind Steward Jiang when he saw Steward Jiang beckoning for a middle-aged man in a eunuch uniform and ordering him to investigate the matter. Steward Jiang's eyes lit up. He thanked Steward Jiang and quickly signaled the middle-aged eunuch to investigate. When Prince Lanling heard Yu Haoran's reminder, his eyes lit up. At the same time, he could not help but look at Yu Haoran with gratitude. Chapter 595. Outside the palace in Xianyang City. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty. After receiving Emperor Qin's assurance and comfort, the burden on Prince Lanling's shoulders was instantly lifted, and he felt much more energetic. It's early in the morning now. Runji, if you're free, why don't you join me for breakfast? After a martial artist cultivation broke through to martial ancestor realm and completely condensed his divine soul, he would need less and less food to replenish his energy. For martial sages like Emperor Qin and Prince Lanling, they were basically no longer affected by the desire to eat, unless it was spiritual fruits and spiritual liquids that contained abundant spiritual energy. Emperor Qin took the initiative to invite Prince Lanling to have breakfast with him mainly because he wanted to use this method to appease and win over Prince Lanling and increase his loyalty to him. After all, as the most important checkpoint in the south of Emperor Qin's empire, the safety of Lanling City had a great impact on the empire. Therefore, in order to ensure that the expedition army could set off smoothly, he had to appease and eliminate all the hidden dangers in the empire. "Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty." While Prince Lanling hurriedly expressed his gratitude, he also knew that this was a further step to prove his loyalty to Emperor Qin and that he could continue to guard Lanling City in the future. Turning his head to look at Yu Haoran, who was not in a good mood, Emperor Qin took the initiative to invite him. "Haoran, join us." "No, I have something to deal with later, so I won't be joining you for breakfast." Shaking his head, Yu Haoran turned down the invitation. At the same time, he thought that he had dealt with most of his matters in Xianying City, so he took the opportunity to leave. "Your Majesty, since we're almost done with the alliance, I'll leave the rest of the details to the two deputies. Therefore, I plan to return to the sect early tomorrow morning so that I can prepare for the engagement ceremony on February 2nd. "Sure." Thinking of the commotion caused by Yu Haoran refining the 5 Lives Mystery Gate elixir yesterday, he knew that it must have attracted the attention of many hidden forces. Although Xianying City had always been under his surveillance, some forces hidden in the dark had the means to shield themselves from his surveillance. If some people were interested in Yu Haoran and wanted to kidnap or assassinate him, Emperor Qin was not 100% confident that he could guarantee his safety unless he was willing to stay in the palace or accept the protection of the martial sages that he had arranged. The 100 Qi Gate's relatively simple situation and the environment that Yu Haoran was familiar with, so it was safer for him. Moreover, there were only 2 months left until the 2nd day of February. Even if they were to prepare for the engagement ceremony now, it would still be a little rushed. Therefore, the Qin Emperor did not try to stop or persuade Yu Haoran to resign. "Your Majesty, I take my leave now." After cupping his fists, Yu Haoran turned and left the palace. When he was some distance away from the palace, he performed his body movement martial technique and sped up to get out of the sight of Emperor Qin and Prince Lanling. Yu Haoran waited until the tower spirit in his sea of consciousness reminded him that it was safe before he flashed into a dark alley. Then, with the help of the elixir, he completely changed his appearance and aura before returning to the street where there were more and more people. "Yu Haoran, where are you going?" Faling couldn't help but ask when he saw that Yu Haoran's destination was not the Qingyuan Guild Hall, but the residential area of the influential people in the North City. "Revenge." Yu Haoran looked indifferent, but his tone was full of murderous intent. Faling didn't say anything. He just used his divine thought as a peak martial venerable to help him stay alert of the surroundings. The house of Marquis Lu was one of the most powerful aristocratic families in Emperor Qin's kingdom. At the same time, it was one of the few hereditary aristocratic families. Standing in a natural forest to the north of the house of Marquis Lu, Yu Haoran observed carefully. After making sure that the surroundings were safe, he used the elixir and a secret technique to hide his aura and tracks. He quietly climbed over the wall and entered the house of Marquis Lu. Relying on the memory of his previous life, Yu Haoran came to an elegant pavilion in the backyard after passing through 3 corridors and 5 secret doors. "Faling, help me check the situation in the pavilion. See if there's a young man around 25 or 26 years old with a feminine temperament and a mole at the corner of his mouth." Without taking the risk of breaking into the pavilion, Yu Haoran first asked Faling for help. In the 3rd room on the east side of the 2nd floor, Faling, who had used his divine thought to check the situation in the pavilion, replied. However, there was a strange tone in his reply. However, Yu Haoran, who was focused on revenge, did not notice the strange tone in Faling's voice. He took out a dark green elixir from his storage ring and directly flicked it towards the 3rd room on the east side of the 2nd floor. After waiting for 10 seconds, Yu Haoran quietly entered the pavilion and directly went to the 3rd room on the east side of the 2nd floor. Perhaps because he was very confident in the poison elixir he had just used, Yu Haoran did not use his divine thought to check the aura in the room. He directly pushed open the door and was shocked by the extremely erotic scene in the room. Looking at the large bed that took up 2/3 of the room and 7 naked beauties lying haphazardly on it, Yu Haoran's face instantly flushed red. Although he had a few relationships in his previous life and this life, they were at most holding hands and hugging. It was the first time he had seen such an erotic scene. Taking a deep breath and forcibly suppressing the shyness in his heart, Yu Haoran looked at the young man who was sleeping under the beauties. Yu Haoran gnashed his teeth and said, in his previous life, this young man called Lu Yu bore a grudge against him because of an unintentional bid during a street stall's treasure hunt. Moreover, Lu Yu sent people to hunt him down for 2 months, causing him to be heavily injured 5 times and almost lose his life once. Therefore, after returning to Xianyang City, the first person Yu Haoran planned to kill was this licentious enemy in front of him. Originally, Yu Haoran's initial plan was to directly erase Lu Yu's soul, but after seeing the erotic scene in front of him, an even more evil idea came to his mind. Yu Haoran took out 7 spirit herbs from his storage ring, and then had the pagoda spirit use its divine sense to temporarily set up a barrier that blocked out energy fluctuations. Then, Yu Haoran used his Dantian flame to refine a drop of colorless and odorless poison. Using a special method, he sent the poison he had just refined into Lu Yu's private part. Yu Haoran laughed sinisterly as he turned and left the pavilion. Regarding this, Faling could only shake his head speechlessly. After quietly leaving the Lu Marquis residence, Yu Haoran arrived at a residence called Iron Blood, about 10 miles away from the Lu Marquis residence. Yu Haoran, this residence is not simple. Faling, who had used his divine thought to check the situation of the residence, warned with a serious expression. Chapter 596. Xianyang City, in front of the Iron King's residence. Whether it was in his previous life or in this life, the Iron King was a hero that Yu Haoran admired and revered from the bottom of his heart. The Iron King's real name was Sun Tai, a simple and ordinary name. He was a commoner from a poor background. He was a general who relied on his steel-like willpower and fearless fighting among thousands of ordinary soldiers to grow up step by step. He was a commoner who did not change his nature because of wealth and remained simple and kind. But the Iron King, like most parents in the world, made the mistake of not knowing how to educate their children. Sun Weibin, the Iron King's 3rd son, was the son with the most talent and potential among his many children. He was also the son that he valued and doted on the most, and had placed all his hopes on. In order to let Sun Weibin grow up as quickly as possible, the Iron King sent him to the army to be honed after his coming-of-age ceremony, and after he revealed his outstanding talent and potential. In order to better stimulate Sun Weibin's potential, the Iron King searched everywhere for countless top-notch resources to help him refine his marrow and improve his potential and strength. It was precisely under the Iron King's nurturing that Sun Weibin grew up rapidly. At the age of 24, not only did he reach the martial king realm, but his continuous accumulation of military achievements also allowed him to become a Chiliarch in command of 1,000 elite soldiers. Sun Weibin's outstanding performance made the Iron King feel deeply gratified, and at the same time, he paid little attention to his private life and the way he conducted himself. It was precisely because of his excessive regard and love that Sun Weibin was arrogant and condescending. His mentality was too twisted, and he liked to torture people for fun, especially young girls. In his previous life, when he was escaping from the experts sent by Lu Yu, he hid in the slums of the southern city for a period of time and inadvertently got to know an ordinary family in the slums. There were a total of 4 people in the family: a girl in her 20s, a lively and cute 9-year-old girl, and a kind-hearted middle-aged couple. Back then, he was able to escape the experts who chased after him several times because of the family's covert protection. He was able to survive 5 serious injuries because of the family's meticulous care. But it was during that pursuit that he almost lost his life that he inadvertently led Sun Weibin into the slums and let him see the family's two daughters. The result was obvious. At that time, because his injuries were too severe and he was no match for Sun Weibin, he could only watch as the family died tragically. After that incident, he swore that he would kill Sun Weibin with his own hands to avenge that family. But he did not know whether it was his luck or Sun Weibin's luck's luck source. By the time he had the strength to kill Sun Weibin and planned to take action, because he could not track Sun Weibin's whereabouts, he did not fulfill his oath in the end. At first, when he chased to the Iron King's residence in Xianyang City, he found that Sun Weibin had already set out with the army. When he chased to Sun Weibin's army, he found that Sun Weibin had already returned to Xianyang City because he had been rewarded for his meritorious service. When he rushed back to Xianyang City, he found that Sun Weibin had been sent to the battlefield because of the urgent situation at the front lines. He went back and forth no less than 5 times, but still could not find any trace of Sun Weibin. When he was tracking Sun Weibin, he inadvertently offended someone with a strong background and was once again in the predicament of being chased. Only then did he temporarily give up on the mission to kill Sun Weibin. Now, since he had the means to kill his opponent, whether it was to fulfill the oath of his previous life or to prevent that family from being harmed by Sun Weibin, he had to eliminate the hidden danger before leaving Xianyang City. Thaling, use your divine sense to help me find a young man about 23 or 24 years old who has just broken through to the Martial King realm and whose body is full of killing intent, Yu Haoran reminded. Yu Haoran, in the entire Iron King's residence, there are 5 people who fit the conditions you just mentioned. Can you provide more detailed information? The Iron King was born a commoner. Even after becoming a noble, he did not forget his roots and always did his best to help the poor and orphans in the city. Therefore, the Iron King's residence had many young disciples who had been trained since childhood. This also made it impossible for Thaling to determine who Sun Weibin was in the first place. Skinny, with a small scar behind his left ear. His eyes were like swords and frost, giving off a feeling of. Carefully recalling Sun Weibin's appearance, Yu Haoran described him in detail. However, he had only described a small part of it when Thaling's divine sense discovered Sun Weibin. However, when he saw Sun Weibin running on top of a woman, he could not help but complain. Yu Haoran, why do all your enemies have the same hobby? Perhaps this is one of the reasons why they deserve to die. Yu Haoran sighed as he shook his head. Then, relying on the memory of his previous life, he came to a low wall in the northwest corner of the Iron King's residence and continued to use pills and secret techniques to sneak into the residence. However, unlike the Lumarquis residence, the Iron King, who had grown up as a soldier, had always maintained the habits of a soldier. Whether it was the guards guarding the residence or the Iron King's family members, whether they were meditating or chatting, they had always maintained a high level of vigilance. It was very difficult to successfully sneak into Sun Weibin's room in the backyard with pills and secret techniques. Yu Haoran could only ask Thaling to use his divine sense to help him conceal his presence. Finally, he succeeded in sneaking into Sun Weibin's room. Standing at the door of the room, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and carefully listened to the movements in the room. When the breathing sounds in the room began to rapidly increase, he directly crushed the green pill that he had prepared in advance. When the breathing sounds in the room gradually calmed down, Yu Haoran pushed open the door and entered the room. What he saw was very similar to the scene in Lu Yu's room. However, unlike how he treated Lu Yu, Sun Weibin, whose mentality had been completely twisted, would probably become even crazier, and his methods of torturing people would be even more cruel if he lost his masculinity. It was to prevent the innocent commoners in Xianyang City from being tortured by Sun Weibin, and also to fulfill the oath that he had made in his previous life to avenge that family. Yu Haoran used Yuan Li to directly shatter Sun Weibin's spirit, and used pills to create the illusion that Sun Weibin had gone berserk due to excessive indulgence. Then, he turned and left the room, leaving the Iron King's residence. Seeing Yu Haoran turn and leave the northern part of the city, Thowling originally thought that he had finished his revenge and was planning to return to the Qing Yuan Guild Hall. However, he unexpectedly discovered that Yu Haoren was heading straight for the more prosperous business district in the western part of the city. After passing through 3 alleys and 2 mansions, he finally arrived at a bustling plaza that sold all kinds of strange goods. Chapter 597. Xianying City, West City Square. The West City Square was located at the junction of the West City and the Inner City. It was about the size of 2 football fields. In the square of the western part of the city, there were hundreds and thousands of stall owners. They were either shouting loudly at the peddlers on the square, chatting with each other, or meditating by themselves. Overall, the entire square gave off a messy feeling. Yu Haoren, what is this place? Thowling asked in surprise as he listened to the chaotic noise. It's similar to a treasure shop, but more deceptive and more likely to produce miracles. Yu Haoren replied as he shuttled through the crowd in the square. Treasure hunting. Hearing Yu Haoren mention treasure hunting, Thowling immediately thought of the treasure hunting experience in Lonling City. He immediately extended his spiritual sense to check the hundreds of thousands or even millions of items in the square to see if there was any treasure that even he was shocked by. Yu Haoren, this is too deceptive. Although he only used his spiritual sense to roughly scan the area, he did not find a single genuine item. This made Thowling wonder how the stall owners in the square were able to persist. Thowling, since it exists, there must be a reasonable reason. After crossing more than half of the square and seeing the white-haired old man at the edge of the square, Yu Haoren's eyes lit up. He slowly approached the white-haired old man's stall while replying to Thowling's exclamation. As far as I know, this treasure hunting business in the square seems to have existed for hundreds of years. After hundreds of years, the treasure hunting business in the square has not only not collapsed, but has become more and more prosperous, and its influence has become greater and greater. This is enough to show that these stall owners have a very shrewd business mind. Moreover, most people who come to Xianying City for the first time would basically come here to take a look and try their luck. Yu Haoren, then have there been any more precious treasures? It had existed for hundreds of years, and its business was getting better and better. This meant that the real situation might be different from what he had imagined, so Thowling hurriedly asked. As far as I know, in the hundreds of years of business, there have been more than 10 artifacts of the Saint Realm and above. There has even been a damaged Supreme-grade Venerable Realm artifact. How is this possible? Even if the Supreme-grade Venerable Realm magic artifact was severely damaged, even if it had completely lost its spirituality. However, as a material used to refine a top-grade Exalted Realm magic weapon, it would definitely contain the unique energy of the material used to refine the weapon. As long as one possessed a divine sense, it would be impossible for them not to discover it. Therefore, Thowling found it hard to believe what Yu Haoren had just said. Thowling, you don't believe me? Thowling's incredulous reaction was within Yu Haoren's expectations. After all, experts who relied too much on their divine sense would find it hard to believe that there was a treasure that could escape the detection of divine sense in an open square without any restrictions. However, the truth was so strange and unbelievable. This was also one of the main reasons why customers were constantly attracted to this place. Thowling, next, I'll let you see with your own eyes how I'll pick out shocking treasures when your divine sense can't distinguish them. Sir, take a look. Although the things I have here look a little old, most of them are peerless treasures of great origin. Seeing Yu Haoren dressed in the uniform of an elite disciple of a sect, the white-haired old man, who had not opened for business for the entire morning, called out to him enthusiastically. Squatting down, Yu Haoren carefully observed the hundreds of old and damaged items placed in front of the white-haired old man. At the same time, he carefully recalled what he had encountered here in his previous life. Finally, he found the 3 small ornaments that would not attract anyone's attention. There was a rusty dagger, a black bead that was mostly covered in mud, and a dried leaf that had a yellowish hue to it. Pointing at the dagger, the black bead, and the leaf, Howard asked indifferently, "Boss, name your price." Young hero, your eyesight is really bad. These 3 items are all priceless, peerless treasures. Seeing the 3 small ornaments that Howard had picked out, the white-haired old man could not help but frown, because he really did not know how to fabricate an earth-shattering origin for these 3 small ornaments to raise their price. Therefore, he could only praise them while using his brain to make up a story. "All right, boss. Although I'm not a local of Xianyang City, I've been here more than once." Seeing the white-haired old man who was planning to fabricate the origin of these 3 small ornaments on the spot, Howard impatiently hinted, "So, you'd better name your price." This, Howard's calm demeanor and impatient tone made the white-haired old man unsure whether this young man in front of him was telling the truth or not. However, since the other party had directly stated the rules of this place, the white-haired old man did not bother to make up a story and directly gave a price that made Thowling stunned. Among the 3 items, the black bead that is covered in mud has the most extraordinary origin. The price is 100,000 spiritual stones of the 1st grade of the 8th level. As for the dagger and the leaf, you can give me 50,000 spiritual stones of the 1st grade of the 8th level. Madman, this is simply a madman. Hearing the white-haired old man's sky-high price, Thowling could not help but comment, "Boss, let's not beat around the bush. You and I both know the price of these 3 items." Compared to Thowling's gaffe, Howard's reaction was very calm, and he began to bargain with a smile. "How about this? The total of the 3 items is 5 spiritual stones of the 1st grade of the 8th level. What do you think?" After hearing Howard's bargain, the white-haired old man opposite him shook his head and smiled bitterly. However, Thowling in the sea of consciousness widened his eyes and could not believe that Howard dared to bargain like this. 150,000 spiritual stones, and he directly bargained with 5 spiritual stones. This kind of bargaining was not cutting the waist or the foot, but the bottom of the foot. "Young hero, I'm running a small business. Your bargain is too cruel." The white-haired old man complained with a bitter smile. Then, he pretended to be reluctant and said, "How about this? I temporarily encountered some difficulties, and I urgently need some spiritual stones to help. How about 15,000 spiritual stones of the 1st grade of the 8th level?" Looking at the white-haired old man who directly reduced the price by 10 times, Thowling was completely confused and finally ignored the bargaining between the 2 of them. For spiritual stones, seeing that the other party was still delusional, Howard not only did not raise the price, but also directly reduced it by 1 spiritual stone. "Young hero, you can't do this." Seeing that Howard directly cut off a spiritual stone without any discussion, the white-haired old man suddenly became anxious. Chapter 598. Xianyang City, West City Square. 100 spiritual stones. It can't be any less than that. Otherwise, young hero, you should go somewhere else. Pretending to be in deep thought, the white-haired old man finally gave the final price with gritted teeth. 3 spirit stones. If you are willing, I will take the spirit stones now. If not, I will get up and leave. Howard also gave the final price that he could accept. "Sir, I won't see you out." Putting away the dagger, black bead, and leaf that Howard had just picked, the white-haired old man showed him the door with an unhappy expression. "In that case, forget it." Shrugging his shoulders, Howard stood up and left with an indifferent attitude. 3, 2, 1. Howard counted in his heart as he walked away from the stall. "Young hero, wait a moment." Just as Howard was counting in his heart, the white-haired old man's call came from behind him. "Forget it. I've just opened for business today, so 3 spirit stones it is. Consider it as me sacrificing my capital to make a friend." Taking out the 3 items that he had just put away, the white-haired old man said with a pained expression, "Here." Throwing 3 spirit stones to the white-haired old man, Howard took the dagger, black bead, and leaf and began to examine the origins of these 3 items. Thowling, I will show you how I can pick out the real, peerless treasures when you can't find the real one with your spiritual sense. Using his elemental energy, he cut his finger and squeezed out 9 drops of blood onto the rusty dagger. As the blood merged into the dagger, the rust on the surface of the dagger began to fall off gradually. The white-haired old man, who was also shocked by Yu Haoran's use of blood on the dagger, was shocked when he saw the rust falling off the surface of the dagger. Because when he had first obtained this rusty dagger, he had tried countless methods to remove the rust on the surface of the dagger, but he had never been able to do so. When all the rust fell off, revealing the green dagger that emitted traces of cold air, the shock on the white-haired old man's face was instantly replaced by regret. A dagger made of deep-sea, Qingxian divine steel. Thaling, who had also seen the changes in the dagger, no longer needed to use his divine telekinesis to examine the dagger. He could tell at a glance the origin of the dagger's material. A deep-sea specter that's not an artifact, but is better than an artifact. Yu Haoran's action of fusing the 9 drops of blood into the dagger was too strange, and it also attracted the attention of the surrounding stall owners and customers. When he saw Yu Haoran use the dagger in his hand to easily cut through a low-grade Grandmaster Realm defensive device, a knowledgeable stall owner could not help but exclaim in surprise. "Oldie, what did you mean by that?" Hearing the exclamation of the stall owner beside him, the white-haired old man who wanted to know the origin of the dagger hurriedly asked. Although this dagger is not a celestial artifact and does not possess the spirituality and spiritual power of a celestial artifact, its true power is not inferior to an ordinary saint stage celestial artifact. 10,000 years ago, there was an assassin in the assassin world known as the Phantom King. He once assassinated 13 peak 9th grade martial saints and a peerless expert who had just broken through to the martial honorable realm. He relied on this dagger that could ignore any defense. Therefore, this dagger is also known as the Deep Sea Spectre. At this point, the stall owner surnamed he could not help but mock him, taking pleasure in his misfortune. "Old Wu, you've lost a lot of money." The old man, surnamed Wu, whose face instantly turned pale, stared at the dagger in Yu Haoran's hand, and his eyes were filled with unconcealable regret. "I see." Thaling was not interested in the origin of the dagger. This was because with his refining ability, he could raise the dagger's power to another level. What he really cared about was the layer of rust that had blocked his divine telekinesis. According to the color of the rust on the surface of the dagger and its characteristic of melting in contact with blood, Thaling finally figured out its origin. It was the dried blood of a peak 9th grade rank 4 holy beast, purple copper flame beast. After testing the dagger's power with a low-grade Grandmaster stage celestial artifact, Yu Haoran nodded with satisfaction and then put it into his storage ring with a smile. Then he directly picked up the black bead wrapped in soil and pretended to observe it. Then he took out 107th grade, 1st grade spirit stones from his storage ring. He directly stuffed the black bead wrapped in soil into the spirit stones and smashed a spirit stone close to the black bead. The 7th stage, 1st grade spirit stone that had been smashed instantly exploded with a rich spiritual chi that directly enveloped the entire black bead. Most of the stall owners and merchants present were martial artists with a certain level of cultivation. They could clearly feel that part of the black bead, wrapped in soil, was slowly absorbing spirit chi. When the spiritual chi from the shattered level 7, 1st grade spirit stone dissipated, Yu Haoran took the opportunity to shatter another spirit stone that was close to the black bead. The instant spirit chi burst out and enveloped the black bead again. Everyone was surprised to find that the black bead's speed of absorbing spirit chi this time was nearly 3 times faster than the first time, and the capacity of absorbing spirit chi was 5 times greater than before. When the spirit chi from the 2nd 7th grade, 1st grade spirit stone dissipated in the air, Yu Haoran smashed the 3rd spirit stone without any hesitation. Before the spirit chi from the 3rd 7th grade, 1st grade spirit stone could envelop the black bead, a strong suction force came from the black bead and began to crazily devour the spirit chi. The rich spirit chi from the 3rd 7th grade, 1st grade spirit stone was completely absorbed by the black bead without any waste. Then, the black bead began to forcibly devour the spirit chi from the surrounding spirit stones. As the black bead crazily devoured the spirit chi from the spirit stones, the layer of soil wrapped around it gradually began to fall off. Seeing this, Yuhauran hurriedly took out a jade box and carefully put away the soil that had fallen off the surface of the black bead. Spirit melting bead. Just as the black bead began to slowly absorb the spirit chi, a familiar feeling began to surge in his heart. However, that treasure had existed for too long, so Thaling did not remember it for a while. However, when the black bead began to crazily devour the spirit chi from the spirit stones and gradually condensed a drop of milky white liquid inside the black bead, Thaling finally remembered the true origin of this treasure. Yes, it is the spirit-melting bead from ancient times that can fuse and refine spirit chi to assist in improving one's cultivation and strength. Yuhauran, who also knew the origin of the black bead, agreed. Yuhauran, your luck is too good. After getting Yuhauran's agreement, Thaling could not help but sigh. The spirit-melting bead was a spiritual weapon that appeared in ancient times. The spirit-melting bead was not a magic weapon that was artificially refined, but a special spiritual weapon that was nurtured by heaven and earth. The spirit-melting bead could devour a large amount of spirit chi and transform it into the purest spirit chi, which could assist a warrior's cultivation by tens or hundreds of times. Chapter 599. Xianyang City, West City Square. In ancient times, heaven and earth were filled with innate spiritual chi, which was of a higher level than spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Through the transformation of innate spiritual chi, the spirit-melting pearl could play a supportive role, which was incredible. Although the Tianqian continent had undergone a drastic change, and the thinning of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth had caused the spiritual melting stone to temporarily lose its ability to assist in increasing one's cultivation and fall into a state of self-isolation. To Yuhauran, who had never lacked spiritual stones, the spiritual melting pearl could once again restore the heaven-defying assistance ability of the ancient times. Otherwise, Thaling would exclaim at Yuhauran's incredible luck. However, regardless of whether it was a magic weapon made by a craftsman or a spiritual weapon nurtured by heaven and earth, there would be energy fluctuations. Thaling had checked the spirit-melting pearl 3 times with his divine thought, and he did not feel any energy fluctuations. Therefore, he was very interested in the layer of soil that could shield his divine thought, and he could not help but ask, Yuhauran, what is the origin of the soil that wraps the spirit-melting pearl? Thaling, in my previous life, I have explored so many ancient relics, and I have also snuck into the treasure houses of the Blacksmith Pavilion and the Tianqian sect, but I have not found a single clue about the origin of this soil. Yuhauran replied gloomily. Don't worry, we have plenty of time to investigate slowly. Thaling comforted Yuhauran when he heard the gloominess in his voice. Okay. Nodding, Yuhauran did not speak, but kept staring at the spirit-melting pearl that was absorbing the spiritual chi. Even for a martial arts saint, it would take at least an hour to absorb all the spiritual chi in 97 level 1 spirit stones. However, after the spirit-melting pearl's crazy absorption ability, it only took 5 minutes for the 97 level 1 spirit stones to be completely turned into a pile of white powder. He reached out his hand and sucked. The spirit-melting pearl, which had completely shed its soil, did not change much except for its slightly brighter color. His spiritual sense directly entered the spirit-melting pearl, took out the 3 drops of pure spiritual energy floating in the spirit-melting pearl, and then put the spiritual energy into the pill bottle. When Yuhauran put the spirit-melting pearl into the victor, he also put away the dried leaf. Little brother, since you were able to discover the extraordinariness of the dagger and the black pearl, I presume that the leaf is also extraordinary. I wonder if you can explain it to me? Seeing Yuhauran put away the black pearl and the leaf, stall owner he, who was about to leave, hurriedly asked. He wanted to know the origin of the withered leaf and what ability it had. If you don't want to bring trouble to yourself, I can tell you the origin of this leaf. Howard warned with a serious expression as he turned his head to look at the stall owner surnamed he. That won't be necessary. No matter how important the origin of the withered leaf was and how powerful its ability was, it was not as important as his own life. Therefore, after hearing Howard's warning, stall owner, he hurriedly indicated that there was no need and took a few steps back. 3, 2, 1. Turning around, Howard walked away from the square while counting down silently in his heart. After counting down silently for a while, the old man surnamed Wu suddenly turned around and scolded him sternly. You can't leave. What's the matter? Howard asked coldly as he turned around with an unhappy expression. Everyone, you have seen the dagger and the black pearl just now. Ignoring Howard's question, the old man, surnamed Wu, complained to the people around him. If I give you 3 level 1, 8 level spirit stones, will you sell the dagger, the black pearl, and the leaf to me? Of course not. A stall owner immediately agreed. That's right. The dagger and the black bead are probably worth more than a few 100 million, or even more than 1 billion spirit stones of the first grade of the 8th step. Not to mention the mysterious leaf. I think even a fool wouldn't sell it with 3 spirit stones of the first grade of the 8th step. Another stall owner agreed. That's right. That's right. Then, more than 20 stall owners joined in. There were more than 10 stall owners who were martial arts grandmasters and martial kings. They directly blocked Howard's escape route. What's the matter? Don't tell me you're planning to turn your back on us and take it by force. Howard taunted fearlessly in the face of a dozen or so martial ancestor and martial king experts. Boy, these are the 3 spirit stones we just traded. I'll return them to you now. You must immediately return the dagger, the black pearl, and the leaf to me. The old man with the surname Wu, who was at the peak of martial grandmaster 9th grade, directly used his primordial energy to wrap the 3 spirit stones. He seemed to be returning them, but in fact, he wanted to secretly hurt Howard. If he did not use the secret transformation technique, with his current cultivation, he could only exert the strength of a level 2 martial grandmaster at most. It was impossible for him to safely receive the spirit stones. Moreover, the injured black bear was not by his side. Therefore, in the face of the 3 spirit stones, he directly dodged them. Howard's sudden dodging was beyond everyone's expectations. The spirit stones, which contained the primordial energy of a level 9 martial grandmaster, heavily hit a young man who had just broken through to the martial grandmaster realm. He was dressed in brocade clothes and was completely unprepared. If it weren't for the fact that the teenager in brocade clothes had a top-grade defensive celestial device of the king's realm, the 3 spirit stones just now would have definitely killed him. Even so, the spirit stones, which contained the primordial energy of a level 9 martial grandmaster, caused the young man in brocade clothes to vomit blood. How dare you sneak attack me? Barely suppressing the injury in his body, the young man in brocade clothes shouted with a ferocious expression and a strong murderous aura exuding from his body. Sir, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to. Seeing that the young man who had accidentally injured him was not only dressed in brocade clothes, but also had the protection of a Supreme King Realm defensive weapon, it meant that the young man had a powerful background. This made the old man, surnamed Wu, panic and quickly apologize. Is it just an apology? The young man in brocade clothes turned his head to look at Howard and asked with a cold smile. Sir, you saw what happened just now. Instead of immediately calling the masters behind him to take revenge, he looked at Howard in confusion. The shrewd old man, surnamed Wu, immediately guessed the young man's intention. Therefore, the tactful old man immediately pointed at Howard and complained in a sad and indignant tone. This person has evil intentions. He used despicable and shameless means to cheat me of my 3 treasures. Sir, if you can uphold justice for me, you can choose any 2 of the 3 treasures. Boy, did you hear that? Hand over the treasures obediently. The young man in brocade clothes was very satisfied that the old man, surnamed Wu, was tactful enough to allow him to choose two of the three treasures. He was also very proud of his action of deliberately getting injured. Chapter 600. Xianyang City, West City Square. Get lost. Yu Haoran's face could not help but darken as he sternly reprimanded the youth in embroidered clothes. Brat, do you know who I am? How dare you tell me get lost? Are you tired of living? Yu Haoran's stern rebuke immediately made the youth in embroidered clothes feel a great humiliation. Thinking of his family's influence in Xianyang City, the young man's face turned red and he threatened with a murderous aura. At the same time, an expert at the peak of the 9th level of the martial royal realm instantly appeared beside the brocade-clothed young man. Then, he looked at Yu Haoran with vigilance. Young man, if you know what's good for you, you'd better hand over the dagger, the black pearl and the leaf. The old man, surnamed Wu, immediately urged Yu Haoran excitedly when he saw the martial emperor expert appear beside the embroidered-robed youth. Perhaps this young master will be happy because you took the initiative to hand over the treasures and will not care about your rudeness. After persuading him, the old man, surnamed Wu, looked at Yu Haoran with a complacent expression. Being secretly protected by a peak 9th grade Martial King expert, this kind of treatment showed that the young man's background was not small. It was very likely that he was a direct descendant of one of the 7 great families in Xianyang City. On the other hand, Yu Haoran, he was wearing the uniform of an elite disciple of a sect. Presumably, his background was not as good as the young man. Are you sure you want to interfere? Yu Haoran ignored the threat of the old man, surnamed Wu, and the young man, who also had a complacent expression. He coldly asked the peak 9th grade Martial King expert, "Who are you?" Faced with Yu Haoran's cold question, the peak 9th grade Martial King expert could not help but raise his forehead. This was because Yu Haoran's performance was too calm. He was so calm that it was as if he had a way to counter his young master or was not afraid of his trump card. Therefore, the peak 9th grade Martial King expert did not take the risk to attack. Instead, he asked with a serious expression, "Someone you can't provoke and can't provoke." Yu Haoran continued to coldly reply. Ouch! After Yu Haoran's honest reply, in the eyes of everyone present, he was extremely arrogant. Therefore, the young man in embroidered clothes, who had signaled the martial emperor to take a step back, spoke in a manner that was several times more arrogant than Yu Haoran's. I, Wang Yizhua, have seen many arrogant people, but it's the first time I've seen someone as arrogant and ignorant as you. At this point, the young man in embroidered clothes, who called himself Wang Yizhua, instructed the peak 9th grade martial royal realm expert. Take him down. I want to see what kind of shocking background he has. Yes, young Master Zhua. Although he was a little worried that the overly calm young man in front of him had a powerful background as a bodyguard of the Wang family, one of the 7 great families in Xianyang City, a 9th grade martial royal realm expert could only obediently follow his orders. He had no right to refute or refuse. Therefore, in the face of Wang Yizhua's order, he could only obey and then walk towards Yu Haoran. Looking at the peak 9th grade martial royal realm expert who was slowly walking towards him, Yu Haoran couldn't help but sneer. Then, he directly mobilized the blood essence of the large power king Kong Ape in his meridians and used the blood essence to quickly cast the secret transformation technique. His cultivation and physical body had advanced to the 10th grade martial master realm at the same time. While increasing his own strength, the speed at which he used the blood essence of the 5th rank exotic beast to transform had also increased by more than 10 times. When the peak 9th grade martial royal realm expert took the second step, Yu Haoran began to cast the secret transformation technique. When the peak 9th grade martial royal realm expert took the 5th step, Yu Haoran had already turned into a 57-meter tall large power King Kong ape that was like a giant pillar supporting the sky. Yu Haoran, who was originally just a delicate and pretty youth, instantly turned into an aggressive giant ape, causing the surrounding stall owners to quickly pack up their things and leave the scene. The customers who were watching the show also retreated to a place where they felt safe. As for the old man surnamed Wu, who originally had a complacent smile on his face, as well as the youth in embroidered clothes who was fantasizing about obtaining the dagger and the black pearl, their faces instantly turned pale. Retracting his left leg that was about to take the sixth step, the peak ninth grade martial royal realm expert's expression instantly became serious. Then, he took a deep breath, turned his head, and reminded Wang Yizhua. Young Master Zhua, this subordinate is definitely not a match for this large power King Kong ape. Quickly go to the east side of the plaza and inform the commander of the city guards who maintain order in the plaza to capture this large power King Kong ape. Wang Yizhua, whose face instantly paled, calmed down after hearing the guard's reminder. Then, he directly mobilized the power of the martial ancestor realm, turned around, and dashed towards the east side of the plaza. As he ran, he turned his head to look. Seeing Wang Yizhua running away, Yu Haoran, who had transformed into a large power King Kong ape, did not stop him. He only looked at the peak ninth grade martial royal realm expert, without a trace of emotion in his cold ape eyes. Taking a deep breath, he mobilized all of his origin energy and soul power. The martial king slowly rose into the air, all the way until he was at the same level as Yu Haoran's line of sight. His consciousness took out the purple rod from his storage ring. Yu Haoran, who had transformed into a large power King Kong ape, gradually released a strong killing intent. Along with the strong killing intent that emerged from his body, Yu Haoran stomped on the ground with both of his feet, and his entire body soared into the air. After reaching a certain height in the air, he activated the pure physical strength of the large power King Kong ape and let out a shout that shook the entire Xianyang city. One strike to the sky, in the backyard of the imperial palace. Although it was called a meal, it was actually just some spirit fruits and spirit tea that had been prepared. Just as Emperor Qin was drinking spirit tea and asking about the military affairs of Lanling City, a sudden shout came from beside his ear, causing him to frown uncontrollably. The divine sense of a peak ninth grade martial saint instantly scanned the western city square and immediately saw the large power King Kong ape descending from the sky with a purple rod in its hand. "Your Majesty, what happened?" King Lanling, who was also alarmed by the shout, did not dare to use his divine sense to check because Emperor Qin was by his side and hurriedly asked. "Take a look for yourself," the Qin Emperor said with a displeased expression. As the capital city of the Emperor Qin Kingdom, a fifth-rank, peak seventh-grade exotic beast had barged into the capital city and had even reached the inner city, but the city guards did not notice it. It was already not just a crime of negligence, but a very serious dereliction of duty. How could this not make Emperor Qin angry? Director Jiang, after indicating for King Lanling to use his divine sense to observe, Emperor Qin instructed Director Jiang, who was guarding at the side. "You are personally in charge of this matter." "Yes, Your Majesty." After Director Jiang, who had also used his divine sense to check, left the garden, Director Jiang immediately ordered people to summon the city guard's commander, the Supreme Court's vice minister, and the Ministry of Justice's assistant minister, ordering them to rush to the western city square in the shortest time possible. Chapter 601. Xianyang City Meng Family. Meng Xiang, the head of the Meng family and Meng Sheng's father, couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment when he saw Meng Sheng kneeling in the hall. Then, he raised his head and looked at Meng Yun, who was standing on the right side of the hall. He then ordered, "Meng Yun, let Sheng go to your Iron Wolf army. Let him temper his arrogance in the army. I'll let him come back when he's able to calm down." "Yes, Patriarch," Meng Yun replied with a calm expression. But he was very disappointed with Meng Xiang's decision. Offending Yu Haoran, a peak grandmaster of alchemy, wasn't a big deal. With the strength and influence of the Meng family, they wouldn't care about the revenge of a peak grandmaster of alchemy. But what really disappointed Meng Yun was Meng Sheng's reaction and action after offending Yu Haoran, since he had offended a grandmaster of alchemy who might threaten the family in the future. Either he could put down his pride and apologize. Then, he could do everything he could to beg the Grand Master of Alchemy's forgiveness. Then, he could take the opportunity to establish a good relationship with the Grand Master of Alchemy and rope in a powerful ally for the family. Or, he could do everything he could to eliminate the Grand Master of Alchemy and avoid heavy losses for the Meng family in the future. But what about Meng Sheng's reaction? At first, Meng Yun thought that Meng Sheng's idiotic reaction would make the patriarch and the elders of the family disappointed. Then, they would reconsider the idea of a successor or consider how to train Meng Sheng better. But Meng Xiang's decision just now was obviously to let Meng Sheng leave Xianyang City temporarily and go to the army to avoid the limelight. He wanted to eliminate the bad influence of offending Yuhaoran, to be able to go from an ordinary strategist to a top-notch strategist who commanded millions of soldiers step by step and enter the Grand Council. Meng Yun's vision and knowledge were very high. He was very clear about the plans of the Qin Emperor, who had great talent and bold vision to conquer the world. With the short-sighted vision of the current head of the family, Meng Yun was worried that the Meng family would completely fall in this upheaval of Emperor Qin's kingdom. A stick facing the sky. Just as Meng Yun was about to leave the hall with Meng Sheng in disappointment, he suddenly heard an explosive shout. He immediately used his divine sense to check. Soon after, Meng Yun saw the large Power King Kong ape descending from the sky. Looks like the position of the commander of the city guards is going to be changed. Meng Xiang, who had used his consciousness to see the large Power King Kong ape, said with a face full of smiles, "No, the commander of the city guards won't be in any trouble. The real unlucky ones are the Wang family. Meng Yun's first. Meng Yun's first. SNS's. Yun's was Yun's based. SA's families' family. SS's families. Therefore, Meng Yun didn't care whether he would offend him or not, and directly gave a completely different conclusion. SSS Yun's king is Yun's of Meng Yun. For such a ferocious beast to sneak into the city, and the city guards in charge of protecting the safety of the city did not discover it. The commander of the city guards, Qin Xinyuan, is not only derelict in his duty, but in my opinion, it is a very serious dereliction of duty. According to the laws of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, derelicts should be beheaded. Hearing Meng Yun refuting his conclusion, Meng Xiang frowned in displeasure. But thinking about the power Meng Yun held in his hands, he didn't dare to scold him so easily. He could only refute him with facts. Under normal circumstances, Qin Xinyuan is indeed derelict in his duty. Seeing that Meng Xiang still did not notice the abnormality of the large Power King Kong ape, Meng Yun was even more disappointed. But what if that large Power King Kong ape is not a real beast, but someone who used the large Power King Kong ape's blood essence to cast a transformation secret technique? It's man-made. After hearing Meng Yun's reminder, Meng Xiang muttered to himself. He suddenly thought of the pill master Yuhaoran that Meng Sheng had offended. Wasn't he a disciple of the 100 Qi Gate who could transform into a large Power King Kong ape? Meng Yun, you're saying? Looking at Meng Yun with his eyes wide open, Meng Xiang's face revealed a shocked expression. That's right, the large Power King Kong ape that is killing the Wang family's guards is the vice sect master of the 100 Qi Gate, the peak pill master Yuhaoran, who used the large Power King Kong ape's blood essence to transform. Seeing that Meng Xiang had finally realized the crux of the problem, Meng Yun finally heaved a sigh of relief and replied with a nod. TCH. Unfortunately, facing Meng Xiang and Meng Yun's gradually serious expressions, Meng Sheng, who had not been forgiven but had taken the initiative to stand up, sneered in disdain, and said with a tone full of contempt and ridicule, "So what if he becomes a large Power King Kong ape? I can take his life with a single slap. Bastard, who told you to get up?" Originally, because of his wrong judgment, he had lost face in front of Meng Yun. Meng Xiang, who was extremely unhappy in his heart, became even more furious after hearing Meng Sheng's disdainful arrogance. "Father, am I wrong?" Meng Sheng, who was unconvinced, retorted forcefully. "Shenger, what do you know? Seeing that Meng Xiang did not realize what he had done wrong, Meng Xiang could not help but feel disappointed in his heart. Looking at Meng Xiang with pity, Meng Xiang directly walked to Meng Yun's side and asked with a trace of sadness in his tone, "Meng Yun, according to what I know, His Majesty intends to conquer the world and fight a bloody battle." That's right. Feeling the sadness in Meng Xiang's tone, Meng Yun knew that he had already made a decision. While sympathizing, he also slightly revealed some secrets that he should not have revealed beforehand. The Qin Alliance conference that His Majesty held this time was to eliminate all the hidden dangers within the Empire and prepare for the army's expedition in advance. Speaking to here, Meng Yun looked at Meng Xiang, whose face was still unconvinced, and said with a serious expression, "According to my judgment, the fastest is 3 months, the slowest is half a year, and the fastest is half a year. The Emperor will start the war of conquering the world. Meng Yun, pass on the clan order for me." After hearing the secret that Meng Yun revealed, Meng Xiang nodded his head gratefully, then returned to the high platform in the hall, sat back on the throne that symbolized the clan leader, and ordered with a cold expression, "Clan leader." Taking a step forward, Meng Yun originally wanted to persuade him, but Meng Xiang stretched out his hand and pressed down on the void, indicating that he did not need to say anything. Then, using the power of his spirit, Meng Xiang clearly transmitted every word that he was going to say to everyone in the Meng family. Meng Xiang's moral character is lacking, his conduct is unreasonable, and he considers everyone else beneath him. In order to protect the 10,000 years of foundation of the Meng family, I, as the clan leader, have decided to abolish Meng Xiang's qualifications as the successor and deprive him of all the benefits that he enjoys. "No, father, you can't do this." Hearing that Meng Xiang had directly abolished his qualifications as the successor of the Meng family, Meng Xiang, who was originally unconvinced, immediately panicked. As he knelt on the ground again, he loudly begged, "I have made up my mind." Meng Xiang coldly glanced at Meng Xiang and said with a resolute tone, "If Meng Xiang could be said to be more unyielding, even if he directly turned around and left the Meng family, Meng Xiang would not be angry and would even give him a chance to have another successor." Chapter 602. Xianying City, within the Meng family. It must be you who instigated my father to disqualify me from being the successor. No one knew a son better than his father. On the other hand, a son also knew his father very well. The coldness in Meng Xiang's eyes just now let Meng Xiang know that his father's order to disqualify him from being the successor could not be changed. Having lost everything in an instant, Meng Xiang immediately put all the blame on Meng Yun. From his point of view, if not for Meng Yun's complaint, his father would definitely not be disappointed in him. If not for Meng Yun's rebuttal and reminder of Yu Haoren's influence, his father would definitely not have thought of disqualifying him for being the successor. At this moment, Meng Yun was an irreconcilable enemy in Meng Xiang's eyes. "I'm going to kill you." He directly mobilized all the origin power and soul power of a peak first-rank martial saint and quickly condensed a heavy fist filled with killing intent. Meng Xiang's eyes were bloodshot as he roared and heavily punched towards Meng Yun. "You unfilial son, you dare." Not only did Meng Yun not expect this, even Meng Xiang did not expect Meng Xiang to be so crazy as to launch a sneak attack. Moreover, he was going to kill right in front of him. Meng Xiang was completely unable to stop this and could only shout loudly in hopes that Meng Xiang would stop in time. Unfortunately, Meng Xiang's mind had already been blinded by hatred. How could he stop just because of Meng Xiang's shout? Looking at the heavy fist that was about to land on his body, the originally panicked Meng Yun suddenly calmed down and looked at Meng Xiang with a calm expression. 10 centimeters. 5 centimeters. 3 centimeters. Just as Meng Xiang's heavy fist was 3 centimeters away from Meng Yun's head, a white and tender hand caught the incoming heavy fist with lightning speed and blocked the fatal blow from Meng Yun. After Meng Xiang's heavy fist that was condensed from his origin energy and soul force was crushed by the white and tender hand, a beautiful woman with beautiful hair that was like a waterfall and a valiant and formidable bearing appeared before Meng Yun. Seeing the beautiful woman in a white dress appear before Meng Yun, Meng Xiang's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly bowed as he subdued Meng Xiang. Meng Xiang greets Princess Ruling. Lord Meng, you've gone too far. Princess Ruling coldly glanced at Meng Xiang and questioned him with a frosty expression. If he had not arrived in time, Meng Yun's full-strength punch would have definitely shattered Meng Yun's body and scattered his soul. Princess Ruling, it was this official's fault for not being strict enough, almost allowing my unfilial son to commit an unforgivable crime. This official will definitely punish my unfilial son severely and give Meng Yun an explanation. Meng Xiang hurriedly explained when he sensed Princess Ru Ling's cold aura. Linger, thank you. Stepping past Princess Ru Ling, Meng Yun first turned his head to thank her, then indicated that Meng Xiang did not need to take what had just happened to heart. Patriarch, I'm fine. You don't have to punish Meng Xiang anymore. After all, stripping Meng Xiang of his right to be the successor was a punishment that was even more severe than killing him. If he continued to let Meng Xiang punish Meng Xiang, it might cause a falling out between their fathers. This was something that Meng Yun did not want to see. Unfilial son, hurry up and thank your uncle Meng Yun. Meng Xiang nodded gratefully in response to Meng Yun's understanding. Then, with an ashen face, he spoke loudly to Meng Xiang. However, to Meng Xiang's disappointment, Meng Xiang, who had been completely blinded by hatred, did not even bother to conceal the killing intent in his eyes for Meng Yun, much less apologize. Patriarch, I have some matters to discuss with Princess Ru Ling. I will take my leave for now. In order to resolve the misunderstanding between father and son and make Meng Xiang accept reality, Meng Xiang needed to reveal some of his inner thoughts and even some secrets about the Meng clan. Therefore, the tactful Meng Yun hurriedly used Princess Ru Ling as an excuse to take his leave. Meng Yun, take good care of Princess Ru Ling for me. Meng Xiang instructed with a nod. Brother Yun, what business do you have with me? Princess Ru Ling asked expectantly after leaving the meeting hall and arriving at Meng Yun's residence. Don't make a fuss. With your shrewdness, can't you see that I'm using this as an excuse to leave the meeting hall? Meng Yun said rather gloomily after glaring at Princess Ru Ling. Chapter 603. Xianying City, West City Square. Just as Yu Haoran used the single staff facing the sky and easily killed a peak 9th grade Martial King expert, an extremely powerful aura quickly rushed over from the inner city like lightning. However, after feeling the terrifying power emitted by the single staff facing the sky, the expert with the aura of a peak 7th grade Martial Saint finally stopped about 20 meters away from Yu Haoran. After coldly looking at the general in green armor who stopped 20 meters away, Yu Haoran, who had transformed into a Power King Kong ape, slowly landed on the square. Now, do you still want me to hand over the dagger, the black pearl, and the leaf? Looking down at the old man, surnamed Wu, Yu Haoran asked coldly. The old man, surnamed Wu, who was stared at by Yu Haoran's scarlet eyes, was almost scared out of his wits. However, when he looked at the general in green armor who had also landed on the square, the fear in his heart was immediately replaced by excitement. Kid, what you are considering now is not whether you should hand over the dagger, the black pearl, and the leaf, but whether you can survive. Speaking until here, the old man surnamed Wu directly knelt down in front of the general in green armor and saluted with an excited expression. This humble one greets the commander. Who are you? Ignoring the old man, surnamed Wu, who was kneeling down, the general wrapped in green armor asked coldly. A good person who was wronged. Putting away the purple staff in his hand, Yu Haoran replied with the same cold tone. After hearing Yu Haoran's reply, the general wrapped in green armor could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Regardless of whether he was wronged or not, as long as he was a human, As long as he was not a real power King Kong ape, their city guard army would not be guilty of dereliction of duty. Then, as the commander of the city guard army, he would not be beheaded. With a thought, the green armor wrapped around his body automatically retracted, revealing a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance and a dignified temperament under the armor. Although he took the initiative to retract the green armor and took the initiative to show a friendly action, the cultivation of a peak 7th grade martial saint gave Yu Haoran a lot of pressure. Therefore, he could only continue to maintain his large power King Kong ape transformation, in case something unexpected happened and he had the means to counterattack. Frowning slightly, the middle-aged man was slightly dissatisfied with Yu Haoran's overly vigilant reaction. However, when he thought about how the news he had just received was directly related to the young man in front of him who could transform into a large power King Kong ape, the trace of dissatisfaction in the middle-aged man's heart immediately disappeared without a trace. Then, he forced a smile and took the initiative to introduce himself. My surname is Qin, and my name is Sheng Yuan. I am the commander of the city guards of Xianyang City, and also the uncle of Princess Ling Fei. Junior Yu Haoran greets Commander Qin. Since he took the initiative to introduce himself and mentioned Princess Ling Fei, Yu Haoran immediately guessed that the other party probably already knew about his engagement with Qin Ling Fei. Moreover, he had deliberately pointed out that he was related to Qin Ling Fei, which was enough to show that he had no ill intentions towards her. Therefore, after greeting him, Yu Haoran planned to disperse the secret transformation technique and return to his original appearance. However, right at this moment, several powerful auras quickly rushed over and appeared beside Qin Sheng Yuan. Commander Qin, you didn't even know that a rank 5 peak 7th rank violent exotic beast had entered the inner city. How did you become the commander of the city guards? Without waiting for Qin Sheng Yuan to take the initiative to greet him, an old man dressed in the uniform of a eunuch appeared beside him. His face was gloomy, and his voice was sharp as he questioned repeatedly. Manager Jiang, don't blame Commander Qin. The large power King Kong ape just now was me. Seeing that Manager Jiang had misunderstood his current state and was planning to blame Qin Sheng Yuan, Yu Haoran hurriedly dispersed the secret transformation technique and returned to his original appearance as he greeted. Prince Consort, so it's you. Seeing Yu Haoran, who had returned to his original appearance, Manager Jiang, who had collected information about Yu Haoran for the Emperor, immediately understood the reason for the matter. His originally gloomy face was instantly replaced by a smile as he took the initiative to greet him. Prince Consort, Qin Sheng Yuan, who knew about the marriage between Yu Haoran and Princess Ling Fei, did not have the slightest change in his expression. However, the expressions of the people present who did not know about the marriage between the two changed drastically. This included the Supreme Court's Vice-Chancellor, Jiang Hongwei. This was because Jiang Hongwei's relationship with the Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Rights, Qin Jichong, was not shallow. He also knew that Yu Haoran had once killed an official of the Ministry of Rights. As the Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Rights, Qin Jichong was currently planning to join forces with the important members of the 6 departments, as well as more than 10 ministers in the Imperial Court, to submit a joint report tomorrow morning to severely punish Yu Haoran, as well as Yu Haoran's 100 Qi Gate. Now that Yu Haoran had actually become the Prince Consort, it meant that the Emperor thought highly of him. Would it be too risky for Qin Jichong and the others to submit a joint report? Thinking of this, Jiang Hongwei raised his head and looked at Yu Haoran, a trace of hesitation flashing across his eyes. Prince Consort, what's going on? Pointing at some of the broken debris scattered around, as well as the blood stains that had fallen to the ground, Jiang Hongwei asked with concern. Alas, a kind person is bullied, a kind horse is ridden. Glancing at the old man surnamed Wu, who had quietly retreated into the crowd, Yu Haoran immediately pretended to be aggrieved and explained. Prince Consort in Xianyang City, in the Emperor Qin's kingdom, except for the Emperor and Princess Ling Fei, no one dares to bully you. Although Yu Haoran's performance made everyone believe that he had suffered grievances, Jiang Hongwei, who had already seen Yu Haoran's cunning means, did not believe it so easily. Alas, it's like this. Seeing that Jiang Hongwei did not believe him, Yu Haoran sighed even more grievously, and then told him what had just happened in full detail. Who dares to blackmail the emperor's most valued prince consort? After hearing Yu Haoran's detailed account, Jiang Hongwei realized that he had indeed wronged Yu Haoran and immediately asked with a gloomy face, "Mr. Jiang, it's that person." Yu Haoran pointed at the old man, surnamed Wu, who had mixed into the crowd and intended to take advantage of the chaos to escape from Xianyang City. A mere peddler who relies on swindling for a living dares to blackmail the prince consort? Looking gloomily at the old man, surnamed Wu, Jiang Hongwei's sharp voice revealed a chill that made everyone present unable to help but feel afraid. "Mr. Jiang Hongwei, I deserve to die. I deserve to die." Facing Jiang Hongwei's questioning, the old man surnamed Wu did not know how to defend himself, nor did he know how to plead for mercy. He just kept kowtowing. "Prince Consort, what do you think?" Pointing at the old man surnamed Wu, who was still kowtowing, Jiang Hongwei asked, "Since he himself said that he deserves to die, then let's fulfill his wish to die." Chapter 604. Xianyang City, West City Square. In his previous life, if old man Wu hadn't deliberately sowed discord, Liu Yu wouldn't have hated him to the point of sending experts to kill him. If Liu Yu hadn't sent experts to kill him, he wouldn't have been seriously injured and wouldn't have gotten to know that ordinary family in the South City slums. If he hadn't gotten to know that ordinary family, he wouldn't have attracted the attention of Sun Weibin and ultimately led to the tragic death of his family of four. In the end, everything that he had suffered in Xianyang City in his previous life was because of old man Wu. This was also one of the reasons why Yu Haoran had come to the West City Square. Of course, Yu Haoran didn't want to kill old man Wu. After all, old man Wu was a businessman. He had secretly sowed discord between Liu Yu and him in order to earn more spirit stones. If he hadn't been blinded by greed and reneged on the three treasures, Yu Haoran would have left the square and left Xianyang City. He would have used the three treasures as the price to make up for the crimes he had committed in his previous life. But the result was that wealth had moved people's hearts, and he had brought about his own death. Although old man Wu said that he deserved to die, he didn't want to die. He only hoped to use this method to obtain a chance to live. But Yu Haoran had used this as an excuse to sentence him to death. Thus, when they heard Yu Haoran sentence old man Wu's fate, everyone present was stunned for a moment. Then, they couldn't help but shake their heads and smile bitterly. "Commander Qin, I'll have to trouble you," Steward Jiang said to Qin Xingyuan. "It's my honor to be able to work for the son-in-law." Qin Xingyuan first fawned on Yu Haoran before ordering a group of city guards who had just arrived. "Men, take him away and deal with him." Old man Wu, who knew that he deserved to die, didn't resist with all his might, nor did he curse Yu Haoran in exasperation. He only allowed the city guards to take him away. Yu Haoran faintly felt a trace of pity in his heart. However, when he thought of the two daughters of that family in the South City slums being tortured to death by Sun Weibin, the trace of pity in his heart immediately disappeared. "Young Master Wang, the matter between us hasn't been settled yet. How can you think of leaving?" Wang Yizhua, who had come with the city guards, mixed into the crowd with a pale face after learning of Yu Haoran's true identity and planned to secretly return to his family. However, how could Yu Haoran, whose attention had always been on him, let him leave so easily? If old man Wu hadn't been blinded by greed and done something that went against the rules, Yu Haoran might have let him live. Therefore, Yu Haoran would not easily let Wang Yizhua, who was blinded by greed and coveted the three treasures and even wanted to take his life, off the hook. Mr. Fuma, everything just now was a misunderstanding. I will definitely pay you a visit to apologize another day. Seeing Yu Haoran notice him, Wang Yizhua knew that he couldn't leave for the time being. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down as he explained with a smile. Everything was a misunderstanding. Yu Haoran couldn't help but snort coldly when he saw Wang Yizhua attribute everything that had just happened to a misunderstanding. Wang Yizhua, if I accidentally kill you and then tell your Wang family that it was all a misunderstanding, I don't know if your Wang family will forgive me. Yu Haoran, since you know that I am from the Wang family, you must also know the influence of my Wang family in Xianyang City. Wang Yizhua's expression changed when he heard Yu Haoran's mockery. The fear in his heart was immediately replaced by anger, and he resumed his profligate nature as he threatened. I, Wang Yizhua, am the third son of the current head of the Wang family. If you dare to hurt me, my Wang family will never let you off. A mere child of a first-rate family actually dared to threaten the emperor's most valued son-in-law. Steward Zhang's expression darkened as he planned to teach Wang Yizhua a lesson. However, Yu Haoran reached out and pressed on his shoulder, indicating that he didn't need to step in. If Steward Zhang stepped in to teach Wang Yizhua a lesson, it would be a contest between the imperial family and the Wang family. Although the Wang family was definitely no match for the imperial family, Emperor Qin would definitely be merciful to Wang Yizhua in order to ensure next year's campaign. This was something that Yu Haoran didn't want to see, and also the main reason why he stopped Steward Jiang from stepping in. Wang Yizhua, anyone who is familiar with me, Yu Haoran, would know that I'm not only a narrow-minded, sinister villain who seeks revenge for the smallest grievance, but also an ignorant junior who does as he pleases and dares to poke a hole in the sky. While muttering to himself, Yu Haoran introduced his character, which couldn't be considered an advantage and could even be said to be a flaw, while secretly activating the blood essence of the large power King Kong ape. He walked towards Wang Yizhua. Not to mention that you, Wang Yizhua, are only a son of the head of the Wang family. Even if you are the son of the heavenly king, you will still die if you dare to offend me. Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran's self-evaluation just now could be said to be a flaw that everyone hated and even tried their best to restrain. However, when it came from his mouth, not only did everyone not feel the slightest bit of disgust, they instead admired his straightforward character. Yu Haoran, what are you trying to do? Looking at Yu Haoran, whose appearance was gradually changing and whose body was growing stronger, Wang Yizhua couldn't help but ask in horror, "What do you think?" Wang Yizhua was only a profligate son who had just broken through to the martial ancestor realm. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a top-quality king realm defensive artifact on him, Yu Haoran wouldn't even be bothered to use the blood essence of the large power King Kong ape. He could easily kill him with his own strength. Therefore, after activating a third of the large power King Kong ape's energy and maintaining the strength of a martial king, Yu Haoran directly extended his wide ape palm and grabbed towards Wang Yizhua, who was already scared silly. "Prince Consort, can you give this old man some face and let Zhuor live?" Just as Yu Haoran's ape palm was about to grab Wang Yizhua, a strong power instantly exploded out from the jade pendant on Wang Yizhua's neck. Luckily, this strong power only protected Wang Yizhua and didn't harm Yu Haoran's ape palm. After the power of the jade pendant protected Wang Yizhua, an aged voice came from the east of the city. Wang Yizhua, who originally thought that he was going to die, immediately returned to his profligate son when he felt the strong power from the jade pendant and heard the familiar voice. Pointing at Yu Haoran, Wang Yizhua demanded with a sinister expression, Chapter 605. Xianyang City, West City Square. Grandpa, that you brat wanted to kill your most beloved and most valued grandson. Wang Yizhua, who had regained his true colors as a hedonistic son, had an unusually ferocious expression as he demanded arrogantly, "Grandfather, capture him now and hand him over to me. Next, I want him to truly experience the cruelty of the Wang family's torture. I want him to experience what it means to wish he was dead. I want him to know the consequences of offending me." Wang Yizhua. Originally, after hearing the request of the Wang family patriarch from the East City, Chief Steward Jiang, Qin Shengyuan, Jiang Hongwei, and the others secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They also planned to work together with the Wang family patriarch to persuade Yu Haoran to let Wang Yizhua live. After all, the Wang family's strength and influence in Xianyang City were not small. Behind them stood a tangled and complicated array of forces. If the Wang family was dissatisfied with Emperor Qin because of Wang Yizhua, it would definitely affect Emperor Qin's plans to conquer the world. However, Chief Steward Jiang and the others did not expect Wang Yizhua's resentment toward Yu Haoran to be so deep. Not only did he want to kill him, but he even wanted to ruthlessly torture him before taking his life. Who was Yu Haoran? Not only was he the deputy sect leader of a second-rate sect, but he was also the leader of the Qin Alliance Conference. He was also a peak alchemy grandmaster and the prince consort that Emperor Qin valued the most. Wang Yizhua's earlier request not only trampled on the dignity of a peak alchemy grandmaster, but it also despised the majesty of the emperor. Therefore, Chief Steward Jiang, who was Emperor Qin's absolute confidant, as well as Qin Lingfei's biological uncle, and Qin Xingyuan, who had a gloomy expression, stood on Yu Haoran's left and right respectively. On the other hand, Chief Justice Jiang Hongwei shook his head and laughed bitterly. Subsequently, he also stood on Yu Haoran's left and faced the hale and hearty old man with snow-white hair who appeared beside Wang Yizhua with Chief Steward Jiang and Qin Xingyuan. "Grandfather!" Wang Yizhua shouted excitedly when he saw the silver-haired old man appear in front of him. "Pa!" In response to Wang Yizhua's excited and affectionate shouts, the silver-haired old man not only retracted his protective power, but also slapped Wang Yizhua over 10 meters away before he fell heavily to the ground. Alas! Seeing the Wang family ancestor angrily slap Wang Yizhua, Yu Haoran couldn't help but sigh. Then he dispersed his transformation technique and returned to his original appearance. "Yu, why did you hit me?" Touching his red and swollen face, Wang Yizhua's face turned red as he shouted, "Unfilial son, if it weren't for the fact that you're my grandson, I would have taken your life just now." Seeing that Wang Yizhua still hadn't realized his mistake, the silver-haired old man reprimanded him resentfully. "Grandpa, since you know that I'm your direct descendant, why did you help others beat me up?" Just like Meng Sheng, Wang Yizhua's heart was filled with anger. Not only would he not reflect on his own mistakes, but he would also dwell on the harm his family had caused him. Wang Yizhua's frivolous and ignorant behavior, as well as his actions that might bring the Wang family a calamity of extermination, completely disappointed the silver-haired old man. Alas! After shaking his head and sighing, the silver-haired old man's tone was filled with a trace of sadness. "Yizhua, as the head elder of the Wang family, I now revoke your status as a direct descendant of the family and order you to leave Xianyang City within 3 days. Then you will go to the Wang family's territory, Qingyang City, to receive your punishment." "Damn, old man, you don't have the authority to revoke my status as a direct descendant, and you don't have the right to expel me from Xianyang City." After hearing the silver-haired old man's judgment of his fate, Wang Yizhua immediately descended into madness. He couldn't help but curse his grandfather, who was trying his best to calm Yu Haoran's anger and save his life. In this regard, not to mention the silver-haired old man, even Manager Jiang, Qin Xingyuan, and the others couldn't help but shake their heads in disappointment. Being stripped of his status as a direct descendant and insulting his grandfather without regard for kinship, Yu Haoran could only sigh and lament in his heart in the face of a deranged, hedonistic son like Wang Yizhua. At the same time, his originally intense, killing intent instantly dissipated completely. At this moment, he didn't want to pursue Wang Yizhua's crime of extortion and robbery, nor did he want to converse with the silver-haired old man, who had been insulted because of his grandson. "Lord Qin, Lord Jiang, many thanks." After first thanking Qin Xingyuan and Jiang Hongwei, Yu Haoran turned to Manager Jiang and said, "Manager Jiang, I'm tired. For the time being, I don't want to continue staying in Xianyang City. After I hand over the matters of the Alliance to the 2 deputies, I will immediately leave Xianyang City and return to the 100 Qi Gate. Therefore, I'll have to trouble you to ask His Majesty for my resignation." Prince Consort, feeling Yu Haoran's downcast mood, Manager Jiang wanted to comfort him, but didn't know what to say. I'll take my leave." After cupping his fists at Manager Jiang, Qin Xingyuan, and Jiang Hongwei, Yu Haoran immediately executed his movement technique and quickly left the Western City Plaza. "Prince Consort, why are you leaving?" Faced with the insults from his grandson, the silver-haired old man, whose heart was filled with anger, didn't notice Yu Haoran's resignation at all. It wasn't until Yu Haoran executed his movement technique that the silver-haired old man temporarily calmed down the anger in his heart. Then, he asked with a puzzled expression, "Wang Xian, how many powerful clans have been destroyed by incompetent juniors? You have to take this as a warning." Manager Jiang, who obviously had a good relationship with the silver-haired old man, patted his arm and reminded him. Then, he turned around and soared into the sky, heading straight for the Imperial Palace. "Uncle Wang, only through bloody battles and accomplishing great deeds can one show the true colors of man." Qin Xingyuan, who had a lower status and was inextricably linked to the Wang family, couldn't help but give Wang Xian an idea. He also soared into the sky and headed straight for the inner city. "Lord Wang, as the saying goes, cultivating one's body, managing one's family, and governing the country is still the way of a gentleman. I hope you can take more time to manage the family in the future." Jiang Hongwei, whose status was inferior to Wang Xian, also gave a kind suggestion. Then, he headed straight for the residence of Qin Jichang, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights. Not only had Manager Jiang revealed that Yu Haoran was favored by the emperor and was bestowed the title of Prince Consort, but the person he was betrothed to was Princess Ling Fei, who was regarded as the apple of the emperor's eye. This meant that Yu Haoran's position in the emperor's heart was much higher than he had guessed. Then, Qin Jichang and the others who had jointly requested for Yu Haoran to be severely punished were equivalent to looking down on the emperor's authority. They would incur the wrath of the emperor and Princess Ling Fei. Therefore, he had to quickly remind Qin Jichang to cancel the joint petition. Manager Jiang, Qin Xingyuan, and Jiang Hongwei's advice and suggestions echoed in his ears. Looking at Yu Haoran's gradually disappearing figure, the silver-haired old man, Wang Xian, took a deep breath. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.